You are now listening to the Chieftains podcast, hosted by the Chieftains.
Will be King X right here, formerly known as Dante.
And this is Chieftain Meta. We're definitely in the building. Two separate buildings that sound like one building.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's right. So shout outs to Yvette, Tone, TBA, Tariq Nasheed, and also Andrea. We see you out there, New Black Media. What up? What up? What up?
Peace, 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 peace. Shout out to the New Black Media. You were doing y'all's thing. And we're glad that you're sharing the correct information at the right time.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Using this energy. Yep, definitely at the right time. Using this energy to wake up the community to certain forces within and without that are using us for their own personal agenda. This is collectivism that's supposed to uplift.
So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. Today's topic, we're gonna be dealing with social engineering and the tools that are out there to try and destroy our collective effort towards our liberating efforts to get a Black agenda on the table, and also reparations and some other things that we're going to be talking about on today's episode. So go ahead and define social engineering, Meta.
All right. Social engineering is the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. In the context of information security, the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. Now, in the context we're using it as far as our community and other communities, because this applies to a wide swath, so if you're part of another community, this does apply to you. There is centralized planning via media in an attempt to manage social change. And we've seen that through many examples, especially in lieu of the alphabet community, and regulate the future development and behavior of society. And, there's a specific type of behavior, a set of behaviors that has been deemed as toxic or wrong in specifically our community. And there are forces at work attempting to change that. Would you be willing to agree with me on that?
Oh yeah, definitely, most definitely. I think there's a lot of forces at play here, and I think that in the context of this particular conversation, this discussion here, I think we can definitely dive into the whole wealth dynamic, or the wealth building movement, or in this case, wealth acquisition hustle, the vicarious wealth syndrome, as we said earlier in a chat about that. So we can definitely touch a little bit more on that. What do you think about that?
I think there's definitely been a pattern, especially since the economic downturn about 10, 11 years ago. A lot of people are joining MLMs, and we're going to define those. But that's a small part of that, MLMs. Let's see. Multi-level marketing, also called pyramid selling, network marketing, referral marketing, is a marketing strategy for the sale of products or services, alleged services, where the revenue of the MLM company is derived from a non-salaried workforce selling the company's products or alleged services.
See, the thing about the MLMs, what I noticed that, there are a lot of different people who join that with the hopes of, becoming millionaires or trying to live the American dream. And I get it, because, for the most part, you work in these 9-to-5 jobs, and often you just barely even getting by. You are lumped into what's known as a working poor. And I get it. You're sold on a dream, on a hope that you too can become like me, the top 1% within this particular MLM, or I like to call them Ponzi schemes or pyramid schemes. At some point, I can use my own self as an example. I fell for that trap too. And guess what? It literally is a trap. Sure, if you got some good skills to sell, then go ahead and sell. But what we're saying is, and within this context here, is that MLMs often, when you join them, you often fail, right? And is it really a sustainable business model? Do you actually own the business itself? When you pay into it, let's keep it real. You actually own a job. You don't own that business. You signed on to that particular MLM to recruit a workforce. I
Factual.
don't know any type of job that says, "Hey, go out there and recruit people." Often, when you go through HR, the HR process is an interview process and all that. You don't, you might own some shares in the company, whatnot. There's health benefits. There's a salary or hourly wage that you might receive as compensation. But with MLMs, you don't get any of that ish. So um, it's more so you're grasping for straws with MLMs, and that's not to down anyone that decides to go ahead and do that and actually end up making some money. But those people are freaking unicorns.
Factual. Just like well, I'm reading this right now and it's funny because it's on US News and that site. Is that site legit, really? I don't know. It said there's a myth. They said 80% of millionaires, 88% are self-made. 88% and only 12% inherited significant money, at least 10% of their wealth. And most did not grow up in exclusive country club neighborhoods. They went to college and are partnered or married. But where is the source for this information? You see, it's right here. It says it's a survey. Okay, about surveys, aren't isn't information given in a survey that's voluntary information, right? I believe
Yeah,
it is.
volunteering information definitely.
So wouldn't somebody put themselves, even if they were anonymous, wouldn't they try to put themselves in the best light possible?
Oh, definitely. You're going to do that. You're going to skew some of the statistics to make it seem more favorable uh, to fit said agenda. So no, I
Right.
wouldn't say that this right here is particularly credible
Some
or even authentic.
use somebody for an example. And I don't even really usually talk like this. Yvette Carnell mentioned a young woman who had a great deal of wealth transfers. Well, I don't know her name and I'm not going to get into her business, but that was
Right.
a very interesting story.
Yes.
She
Yes.
was
The,
given
the
access
franchisee.
to homes and
Yep.
a great deal of loans that were in the 5 to 6 figures. But
Hmm.
let's focus on somebody else. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yes.
It's a
Gary Vaynerchuk
very
inherited a business.
Yes, he inherited a business.
Hmm.
But nobody really knew about this beforehand. We're trying
No.
to figure out why this information wasn't revealed, because that's the number one thing and it ties into another conversation we're going to have. Capital, startup capital is the name of the game. Capital is the name of the game in that situation. This person didn't reveal their capital.
Exactly. And their social network.
Ooh,
Social.
their social network.
This is what like a lot of immigrants,
Mm,
and we can talk about immigrants. Listen, when we talk about immigrants, we're not talking about y'all in a negative light, but
negative.
some of y'all really need to hear the truth about yourselves because you talk a lot of trash about foundational Black Americans, but
Yeah,
lazy, this, that, and the third. But you don't understand how we have been locked out of building wealth. When y'all come here, y'all normally have all these different networks or social networks, or in this case, social capital, to have upward mobility within a society that says Black people ain't ish, right? So it's easy for Gary Vaynerchuk to say that you too, all you need to do is hustle, right?
right.
A lot of his speeches are very motivational that he gives. Some of it is good information, don't get it twisted. Some of it is, but for the most part, hustling 18 hours a day is not going to get me out of my situation. It's not.
Not
Um,
at all.
why
Your
would I come home
expenses will catch up with your income
if not
eventually.
my expenses, my health,
Your health
right?
as well.
We're talking
And
about
health is the new wealth. That's
yeah,
what's
let's
becoming. Yep.
talk about it. So Gary Vaynerchuk inherited a business. His parents, I get it, they were immigrants, they worked hard, and that's another thing we got to touch on is this whole you need to work hard, you need to hustle, you need to, money above everything, right? That is a dangerous mindset to have. What about your family? What about you said it, your health? What about your mental state, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, and those around you? What do you
This
think
is
about
factual.
that? Yeah.
I think all of that applies. And then we're also not taking into consideration, because people always say, well, downsize this, downsize that, downsize this, downsize that. For one, did they show any evidence of them ever going through that process? Like, do they have footage of them living that entirely downsized life? Did
No,
they have proof that they were living mega deep in an apartment and in how are these complexes?
right. Yeah, exactly.
Like I think we said before, they will come through to make sure they have inspections, and they're supposedly for repairs, but they're actually to check how many beds are in the house and see how many occupants are in the apartment. And unless you have a special relationship with a company that has a special relationship with that apartment complex that
yeah.
says, don't mess with these people, they work for me.
Yep.
They came up here to work for me.
The
They're
the
gonna be like, you have
right.
too many occupants.
Yep. Too many
Extra occupants. You have overcapacity occupants in this 2-bedroom. There's supposed to be 4 or 5 people in here max. These aren't
Violating all.
children. These are adults.
Yep. And that's the thing. The chain migration, those patterns right there, we can talk about that and we touch on it. But the thing is, like, when they do that, right, oftentimes, and they're actually breaking the law. When you have too many to one particular bedroom or to a apartment or a house, oftentimes, if they do an inspection and they see that, they're looking at the overall well-being of said occupants. Because if you're doing that and you have like 30 people living in the basement, that's a problem.
Yeah, and that also ties in. Okay, for one, because I don't have any problem with it, and I'm not against it, and I live in another country myself now, but there's things that I can't do here that
Right.
other people can do.
No.
I have a child, right?
Exactly.
Because I have a child, and they don't provide this in this country. I can't get EBT. They don't have that here.
Right.
But if you have a child, that child can receive benefits. So it doesn't matter if you can't receive benefits, which isn't all the way 100% true, because they're not just going to starve somebody. You
correct.
always get some emergency benefits, but your child, you will receive benefits through your child. So there will be some type of assistance. It's not just automatic working.
Wow.
Because I've been in jobs in family services in multiple states.
Yeah.
For other reasons. When I was a student before and I was working, I was on EBT.
Exactly.
And I was probably one of 4. This is the PG County one, maybe 1 or 4 or 5 African Americans. There was a great deal of different nationalities, and I know some of these people were recently arrived. They're speaking in their languages comfortably, and I can tell by their mode of dress that they were not multi-generational.
Right.
So, I mean, that's cool, but don't say that you don't get that. Don't say that you don't have the ability to do so, when I've seen it with my own eyes that there are loopholes and ways to do it. No?
Yeah, more than one loophole, even lineage loopholes. We don't really acknowledge that. But the thing is, it's easy for you to check off in a box that you African American or Black, right?
Cool.
We so that way you can get the set asides meant specifically for us, that were meant for us, but then they watered it down with diversity initiative and all that shit.
Right.
Excuse my language. So, back to Gary Vaynerchuk and the likes of them, and also inherited wealth, and back to that article. Actually, on oneequality.org, there's an article put out not that long ago. They're saying those born on first base in upper class families with inheritance up to 1 million make up 22% of the 400.
Ooh.
Right there, this proving that other article. I believe, I'm assuming it was Dave Ramsey who put it up, right?
Right.
On second base, households wealthy enough to run a business big enough to generate inheritance over 1 million. The new UFE study found another 11.5%. On third base, with inherited wealth over 50 million, sits 7% of America's 400 richest. Last but not least, the born on home plate crowd. These high rollers, 21.25% of total Forbes list, all inherited enough to earn their way into top 400 status. The narrative of wealth and achievement that Forbes is pushing ignores the other side of the coin, end quote. So we're talking about wealth classification in America. And often you look at the Forbes list, a lot of those people who they're looking at that are really wealthy, some of them come from immigrant stock. And then how many are foundational Black Americans on that list? And they don't get it twisted. I don't think that Forbes is necessarily credible because you can't tell me sitting here that you got $1 billion, but you can't touch it.
Right.
That's not $1 billion. Having a whole bunch of homes and all that, sure, okay, I can understand having some, who doesn't need a home? I get it. Everyone needs a home. But what I'm getting at is the fact of being liquid. In this case, now we can touch on the differences between Byron Allen and also Jay-Z and others, right? So in this case, Byron Allen, he didn't talk about buying something. He just went and just did it.
Right.
Right? Weather Channel, he ain't sent out a tweet. He said, I'm just gonna go buy the Weather Channel. When it came to the whole marketing scheme involving Jay-Z, right? And I'll touch on it for a short bit because I think with Jay-Z, a lot of people have been going in on him, sell out the second, third. But the thing is,
yeah, I'm not gonna exaggerate and go through all those words because look, first of all, people forget what kind of rapper he is. He said he's a hustler, baby, and every bar, Reasonable Doubt was a Hustler's classic album. The man's video, if you look at the first In My Lifetime, the man was on a yacht in 95. Come on, dog. That's that get money music. So you should already know what time it is with that. Even when somebody said that's community improvement, the man is going to do that for his own gain and public image.
Justifying ends. And how
he said it himself in his rap. I make the means justify the ends. In this case, it really doesn't because you have people like Van Jones involved and then that Robert Kraft and all these allegedly beneficial people. And it becomes another Crayola box of diversity and people of color. And this is allegedly going to happen, all these promises. And you know what? And it's just not, I don't see it panning out because it's very corporatized. And yes, you got a seat at the table. That's a seat at the table for you. And your people directly for you and Miss Perez, the DEA agent. But that's another story. My bad. DEA informant. Whoops.
So for all you JC worshipers, your boy is working with a snitch.
Shout outs to him though. I love that man music. That's foul. All I need was my anthem. That blueprint came out. I was loving it. I'm digging it. And this ain't even a hip hop podcast. I'm an artist. I always be influenced with people, but I know how to separate somebody's art from the man. And I even met dude before, but that has nothing to do with something you say is for a wide swath of people. For 44 million people, this will eventually benefit 44 million people because my face is on here, because my face is on this initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Even though I have no understanding of politics.
Well, the man did,
right?
He's not qualified to speak in that conversation.
Guess what? You moving up with me too because I'm in a room, right?
Yeah, because my presence is charity. And he said that before.
Yep, he did. That was definitely one of his lines. My presence is charity. He said that. And so we really got to pierce through that veil. Like, we have to stop worshiping celebrities. Like, they're not our leaders. Malcolm X said this years ago that, look at every other community. They don't have comedians or entertainers to speak for them. They have scholars, they have politicians, they have, credible people who are able to advocate for them. Not saying that you can't advocate through your art form, but there's oftentimes this is not the case with a lot of our. They're not using their platform.
And plus, there's a difference between activism and advocacy, and that's what people tend to misunderstand. Advocacy is being on social media and speaking up for a platform, but it's not putting your blood, sweat, and tears into a situation or making it part of your lifestyle.
Factual. Exactly.
And when you have more financial ability, your advocacy may look like activism because money can move a lot of things, but money can also be moved through charity right back into somebody's pockets. And then charity can be used to make somebody look better. It's healthy to be skeptical and examine these situations and question them during them happening. And it's not hating and it's not necessarily, trying to put negative vibes on people. It's just being realistic and recognizing the patterns that we've been shown.
It's through having an honest critique.
Exactly.
I think Common said this years ago. Common, he had a line. He said, something along the lines of that. You know, me having an opinion is not hating.
If I like it, if I don't like it, I don't like it. That don't mean that I'm
Right?
hating.
It
Yes,
don't
he
mean
did.
I'm
He
hating.
did say that.
Right? He said that.
And
So
still that
mhm.
applies to the wealth acquisition hustle.
There we
Yes, be gainfully employed. Always try to have some type of entrepreneurship, but no, that's not going to save the whole group as a group, especially
right.
when you try to compare us to other people who have a different history and a different entryway into our situation. We're not
Exactly.
mobile either. That's another thing. I think that should change, but a lot of people are mobile. And when you analyze that, you're like, wow, mobility is a privilege. The ability to move from one country or continent to another with a group of people and form another community in that place and be able to speak your language and hold on to your cultural customs and absorb the ones around you and keep those intact, that's a privilege.
Mm,
We do not have that privilege.
that's deep.
Even our subgroups like the Nova Scotians and the Samana blacks in the Dominican Republic and the Muskogos in Mexico, are being absorbed into the population, or being Canadianized, or being Hispanicized, or just basically slowly being erased. But there are several communities of other people, our brothers and sisters and our cousins, that are right next to ours, and they can wave their flags freely and speak, as themselves, and still rock with us. And it's all
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Now, we do have, though, in our community, and Americans in Trinidad, shout outs to them, but it's not, is we are not as spread out. We didn't have the opportunity to do so. So when you put that in perspective and you think about the wealth acquisition and trying to compare us to diasporas that have a multiple person spread, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we can possibly, everything's a possibility
Oh,
in
definitely.
life, technically a
Possibility.
possibility,
But the thing is, we don't talk
mathematically
about
not.
that in mathematical terms. Is it a
Yeah,
probability?
yeah, is it probable? There's a low probability of a lot of those actions because A, unlike some of those groups, we don't have the foreign capital, and B, with
Right.
that foreign capital, some of it is not 100% clean. We don't have those connections within customs or the foreign governments to make that money move through the system to us,
Exactly.
nor do we have a place to send our currency to where it can't be monitored by our government.
Mm-hmm.
And we could network with those.
Analyzing into that appropriate context there, that we're missing that we immediately think that anyone that moves here that looks like us are somehow our brother and sister, but that's just the nature of us as being very humane and in very accepting of other people. But even
And you know
still,
what?
deep down
That's
behind
peace.
closed doors,
And
though,
then,
talk about the
right,
difference.
they are our brothers and sisters, but they're also human beings. You feel me? And people are gonna look out for their best interest. If they
Yeah,
have a financial system and a way to get ahead, they're gonna do that.
right.
And people aren't told about, how our parents and grandparents made it possible for them to be able to do so. And
No,
that's not what they're here to do. You feel me? People are here to get their bread and make a better life for themselves. We just happen to be similar and placed in a similar category, and
right.
and a lot of us rock with each other. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
family wise, we're intermarried. We have a huge musical culture, that we have a lot of primary influences that may have been ignored, but we do have a huge shared musical culture and fashion culture. You feel me? So with that being said, there's a lot of subtle things. And with that, I talked to somebody that I used to be involved with earlier today about those financial transactions, and she actually got into some legal trouble because she was doing some financial transactions with some brothers from Liberia, and there was a
Right.
federal case involved, and they left the country. They could leave. They were able to get out of the
Right.
United States and use their connections, but she was not, and
And she
she
ended up
was in
taking.
a yeah, she ended up taking the fall. Now, did she make the choice to break the law herself? Yes, she did, as I have in the past, and I'm sure plenty of people have. That's zero excuse, but the accountability and the culpability was not
Right.
shared equally between all the parties. Not
Facts.
only that, she was threatened with a weapon by one of the people. And when black men from the United States tried to carry on the same hustle, they were a bit wary about that. They were like, nah, we don't know that. So they were targeting women.
Okay.
And when I asked her, did she notice a pattern of people getting caught kind of easy with that financial transaction? She said, yeah, because it's an old style. Like the first time I heard about this was the early 2000s, and people are still doing this now. And I've heard other conversations like between other ethnic groups are like, oh man, they late as hell to this, man. Y'all hot. And you stop trying to stop cracking cards and busting checks, et cetera, because it's not really easy to do anymore. But we're used as the fall people in that. And the same with Ayuto, which is like the Somali money exchange. And there's another type, the money loom, that's been used, and it seems like we take the fall in those situations because we're not used to those, and people use that to their advantage. So where if you flipped it on its head and used it as it was supposed to be used, it would help
Yeah.
people out in credit situations, because a lot of us don't have the credit to make big purchases or the capital to start a business. And that's where a lot of other people get their capital from, those alternative systems and some of that gray, we're going to call it gray money.
And what
Yeah,
exactly is money, right? We never really define gray money, and that is oftentimes money that like can be generated in some ways legal and sometimes not so legal, right? And but you
not
watch it
so
through other
legal.
entities,
And
and
maybe
anytime that's not on the up and up, especially for us as foundational
yep,
Black Americans who are here, we're caught in some situations where we have to make some hard choices. And if it's gray money, maybe I need to dabble in
right.
that because it's not going to be easily tracked, so we think.
Exactly. And then here's the deal, like we're not used to interacting on a global scale, and we don't really have those familial connections across the water. Now with DNA testing and people building relationships with their relatives in West Africa or the Caribbean or South America, it's possible, but it's still not easy for us to do. And plus, these are illicit deductions and funds hidden in offshore banks. The reliability, it's just, that's what I said. The familial connections make that easier for other people to do. We don't have a deep connection like that to where there can be accountability on somebody's end.
Of American society. That's the thing. Like they can easily, for example, they can come here, right? And
Right.
this is see when we talk about immigration policy, and then you look at, I'm gonna use the Mexicans as an example.
Right.
They can easily send money back to where they come from. U.S. dollars, is a dope ass dollar that when you transfer that over to freaking Mexico and it gets converted,
It can multiply.
they can live like millionaires off of that American dollar over there.
Well,
But it,
that's a bit of hyperbole, but it definitely jumps though. The dollar jumps.
yeah, it jumps, it goes up and down. But I guess my point is the fact that often they can live a very comfortable life because they have the ability, for example, to go back home.
Right.
And foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slaves, this is our home. And so for certain individuals to make certain comments that they have been making online just recently, a sister of mine, she was going back and forth with some Nigerians, and some of the comments they were making, not having a historical context
Right.
involving who we are, right? So it's easy for them to say that, oh, you guys are just lazy.
Right. Well,
But
you know what I think it is? I think also people know better and they understand. They know better, but they try to say the first hard hitting thing possible, or
yeah,
the easiest slam dunk. Like, okay, I have this in the pocket. My
to get
mom
there.
told me this. It's just like when you're having an insult, like a roast with a woman, and they'll say one of three things: you're gay, you have a small penis, or you're poor. because those three things affect the ego of men that are simple-minded. You know,
Right.
like as soon as somebody says something like this, that and if it applies, like, oh, even if it doesn't, the crowd or the audience looks at it like that. So when you say, oh, y'all lazy, y'all not blah blah blah, it's a stereotype that's already built in, and it hurts. So it's an easy dismissal. It's a discourse.
Yeah.
It's a discourse stifling mechanism. Like, it's like, well, shut up. I can just dismiss everything you have to say because you're not in the model minority position. And it's crazy that she's from Nigeria. There was a group beforehand in the 80s that they tried to put in that, the Jamaican folks, shout out to the Jamaican brothers. They were like, well, these people were very hardworking. And then it didn't work out. The gray money was revealed. People, they got the stereotype turned around. And then they ended up being branded as criminals. We know that's not true in the first place either. That's a very, 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 very small percentage of their group, and a very, 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 very small percentage of our group. But when you're relying on propaganda from the mainstream media to promote you, you have to take the good and the bad. Just like when they promote our athletic images and our music images around the world in the most negative manner possible, and they show all this high fashion and these gears and this rented cars. One of my people from across the water was like, well, we think y'all all live like that. Even people up here think that the hood is a music video. They think that people have access to all of that capital and that the cars are all theirs and you could just hop on the block and get a pack and become a millionaire, like a rap fantasy. And that's not true at all. So there's misconceptions on both ends. Just like they say, well, they only show the poor part of Africa. That's semi true. They want to show poverty, but I know there's money over there. I know that there's different levels of life, and there's wealth, and there's even a developing middle class. And then shout outs to South Africa, because I saw they were having a barbecue where the brothers were, yeah, they were watching the trailer park people suffer while they were eating barbecue, sitting on their Benzes. You feel me? It was my how the tables have turned. Ooh, it was harsh.
I don't.
Yeah,
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can. Can you hear?
Andrea.
Peace. How are you doing?
Hold up.
One moment.
Okay.
Well, I feel like I can't hear anything.
It might be your settings.
I can't hear you all. Can y'all hear me? Yes, no.
Are we a go?
I still can't hear y'all. Hold on.
Can you hear? You can't hear it all? I can hear it. You can hear her, right? Can you, Carter?
I can hear her.
I can hear it too. Might have.
I'm probably gonna call in.
Hello? I can hear you. I wish there was a chat window.
She's gonna call in. There is a chat function available. And once we go into post production, we'll edit this little part out.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Joining conference now.
Okay.
Oh wow.
I got y'all.
Yeah, we could hear you the first time, but you couldn't hear us. It's probably due to the settings.
It's probably her settings. Yeah, her settings. And but back to what we're discussing, like, we're talking about, now at this point, the moving of dirty money, in and out of dirty money, right? Especially involving immigrants and this whole thing of hustle culture that often gets assigned to that often we get blamed for. So it's easy for them to go back home. They can wash the money clean and they can do whatever it is they need to do. But for us, it's not that easy.
We
Mhm.
might get left holding the bag and not the bag that you think we're holding. And as I said before, that happened to more than one person I know, but somebody I was involved with. I witnessed the situation from top to bottom, and you know, the other people that were involved did leave the country. They went back to Liberia, and
Mm.
she had to eat all of those federal charges, and she was on check system for a couple years. I think that once you have that type of felony on your record, it's going to be difficult for you to maneuver, especially financial related,
Mhm.
as a black woman in the United States. So,
That's true.
and I'm gonna read the inbox. She said there's definitely a pattern of them targeting women and people that didn't know any better.
Mhm.
Yep, she's seen it firsthand. So another episode, we might have her call in
Oh
to
yeah.
speak on that issue.
So I want to discuss. Okay, you and I talked about this, but since we were on marketing or were on marketing, I'm going to go back to this. And Boyce Watkins, he has courses, and he
Mhm.
spent a lot of money in terms of advertising money, right? A lot of advertising money is being spent to push all these different courses. He's on Twitter, he says what he says, and then oftentimes he'll say you need to get off the corporate plantation. And my thinking is this:
Right.
that that's
Right.
very rhetoric for a group of people who have zero wealth, and we are considered the working poor. Now,
Mhm.
I have a couple gripes with him. Not just him, others like him. It's not
Mhm.
just specifically about Boyce Watkins, but I'm using him as an example. So, what makes him authority on business besides having a PhD in finance and or economics? And are we being sold a pipe dream?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
And let me. Here's my point. Having courses ain't a business.
No.
Okay.
Wow. The way she said no, I want to hear from her.
Authority on business, because I have yet to see receipts of him building a sustainable business model or a business. I need to see receipts, bro. What makes you qualified? And would y'all trust someone who has no track record of actually building?
I think he got a piece of paper from a university that said that he could potentially be qualified to tell people. Isn't that his education? That's
Yes.
his
He has
doctorate?
a finance degree.
Oh, okay. But
That
I don't
because
think that automatically translates into any performance, but that means that you spent the money to get it.
I need to
So
see the
I don't
metrics.
know.
I need to see the tangible result too.
Right.
Hmm.
So I actually took a course from Boyce about
Ooh.
3-4 years ago, and it didn't work out for me at all for numerous of reasons. I felt like it was all over the place, and also too, it's like you have to opt into more courses, which means spend more
Ooh.
money that you don't have. So it's just like ongoing dark hole that you go through. And especially if you're a foundational Black American, you're trying to hold on to all your money you have, because we don't have it, and you're telling me I gotta spend another, let's say, $300 a month just to have
Wow.
accessibility to what? Oh yeah, his courses are very expensive.
Let's talk about
$300 a month for Dr. Boyce's court.
hmm,
Wow,
hmm.
isn't that the percentage? What is our collective value? Aren't a great deal of us worth less than $1?
Mhm.
Wow,
And
300.
let alone a middle Black family being worth less than $1,700.
Exactly.
So is that really a sustainable model of business? Because I'm like, I look at the fact that he does a lot of advertising. So I'm wondering,
Mhm.
like, we can talk about like your conversion ratio compared to, in terms of how much you're advertising compared to what is converted.
Right.
And
Right.
then and then we look at the fact in terms of the value of said courses, right? We can talk about that
Yeah.
too. But my
The
thing is this:
conversion ratio of the students.
ain't
How
that.
much income did they spend, and how much of the income that they
Yeah.
spent on your courses was converted into personal income for them, for sustainable
Now,
Mhm.
business for
yeah,
them?
the value
Right.
itself because it's kind of like this, and then I had some other questions, like what happened to Dame Dash?
Exactly.
Working together. No offense. This is not, we're having an honest discussion, and it's just a critique. So I don't need boys coming in my mentions trying to get at me because he's taking the
Not
shit
at all.
my language. But what I'm saying is like the character of a person matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
It matters in life, not just like, okay, I can sell you a product or a course. And like I said before, a course doesn't necessarily make you a good businessman.
Right.
Not at all.
And then it came out that he was working with some Asian. And I know this is old news, but what I'm getting at is just there's some shady business going on with folks like him.
Mm-hmm.
We can even touch on even Jay Morrison and the fact that, okay, yeah, you were in real estate, but you're a real agent. And then what's going on with this Tulsa real estate fund?
Yeah, where is that?
Right.
How is the progress? Because I remember people being shamed into contributing, and if you had any type of questions or realistic critique for his presentation, people were even going to the extent of calling one a coon and saying this is crabs in a bucket and why we can't have anything. And I'm like, it's funny they keep calling this crabs in the bucket, but the ones that get out of the bucket, how did they get out in the first place? Don't they get out off the backs of the other crabs? Maybe you don't want somebody trying to get off your back. You want to know what's up.
But the bucket is not the crab's natural environment.
It's not. We shouldn't be in there in the first place.
Why are we in the bucket? That's what I want to know. Why the hell are we in a bucket? So they never answer that question. And then, okay. So I guess we can say it's settled that we being sold a pipe dream. The middle black family is worth less than $1,700, and then also we can talk about 2053. The black family is going to be worth less, -0.
-0.
Right. So already listen.
Wow.
I believe it's going to be, we don't have any more time. Like, we don't have any more time to waste to be screwing around with courses, to be screwing around with trying to chase after this entrepreneurial dream, aka the American dream. First of all, you got to make us American. That's a to America.
And I even have an idea how we can do that. And I don't want to critique any rappers' endorsements or investments that they have in the justice system, but how about this? We're all aware that we have a high percentage of felony and lifelong near marijuana convictions in our community, correct?
Right.
Okay. And we're also aware this recent multi-state legalization and decriminalization probably going to lead to some federal legalization pretty soon. And I'd say within the next 5 to 10 years. So how about this? We exonerate these charges and maybe give some form of reparations in cannabis farms with required vegetable or utility crop rotation, since land was also stolen from us in the South. You can redeem us. Like, look, now we can grow that. We have a cash crop. We're contributing to the American economy as a whole. It's competitive. And there's plenty of land in the South that isn't occupied, especially in majority black areas. So it would help. That's teaching a skill to felons and people that already have a skill.
Right.
Rather than ankle monitors, ankle bracelets and
conference locked
and other things of that nature, more punitive measures or monitoring measures that supposedly make it easier for one to be in prison near home, but it's really just part of the parole and probation system. I think that would be a much better alternative, especially in California where marijuana is legal.
Exactly.
And oh no, peace. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that I just came back from a conference and they was mentioning the thing that you was talking about, cannabis being reparations, and they were saying to even open a dispensary or even get a license, it starts off at $50,000. So $50,000, and that's a basic license. It can go all the way up to 20 million. Depends on the type of dispensary, license you want to have, license to grow, because you have to have license to grow as well. And it depends on what state you live in. So you got to check with your state laws. also too, it's a 20 to 30 billion with a B business that less
Billion.
than billion. And I think it's probably what they can't even name any, let's say, black folks who's in the business for real, because we don't have the wealth.
Right. I know. I heard of a few growers, black growers in Oakland, the Bay Area, and there may be some in DC because DC is majority black and they have legalization. So I say there's a few, but we're definitely not within a percentage range.
No.
We're not in a competitive percentage at all, but we do have some representation in that field. It's just not enough.
It's not enough. And that leads me to this, like, as I said before, we have to examine actually the cost of doing business within America.
That overhead, that capital overhead. Exactly. And that ties into the previous conversation about, other groups being able to acquire and shift capital a bit easier than we can due to their relationships.
Yes.
We don't have those relationships
at all.
Right.
So it's easy for them to compete. That's why. When you're talking about competition, you can't compete without resources. You can't. Dr. Claude said this years ago, and
now can't bootstrap them out of thin air.
Nope. We don't even have boots, bro.
Right.
We're gonna build some boots out of toenails.
Yeah, we wore the boots, we wore the strings, we wore the socks, we wore the feet.
Facts. Big facts.
That's true.
So if anything, there needs to be a transference of power. And that's what I believe that, when you look at white America and why they are so frantic right now is that, and especially around this topic involving the reparations and now also a black agenda, they're scared now for the fact that right now, at this point, you look at the surveys, they're saying around 30%, a little bit more than that, are probably now in support of reparations.
Correct.
In the last decade. So how about this? Let's make it real simple. Give us the White House, give us the Senate and Congress, give us all the Fortune 500 companies, give us the land, right? But I think what it really is that they're afraid that we will do to them what they did to us.
Yes,
of course.
That's been a fear since we've been, I'm going to put quotes around this, freed from slavery. That's been a fear. And logistically, if you think about our numbers, it couldn't happen. We're not even in a place to make one of those situations move in our favor. But that's how irrational the fear is. They have so many fantasy scenarios, and they've written multiple books and had movies about this, from the 1900s on with the original Birth of a Nation to, I believe, a book, was it written by William Stryker? I forget, but there was a wild book, The Turner Diaries.
The Turner Diaries,
yeah.
Go a little bit.
Another fear fantasy of an alleged revolution, that we would be capable of in reprisal, and it is beyond the fear. I think it's also, they know that there has to be feet, there has to be a base, there has to be a bottom in order for a house has to have a foundation. If we wake up and have our own resources, then we might be able to lift ourselves out of a certain type of consumerism, because we wouldn't have to be so not necessarily have to be so flashy. We could flash with our own stuff and kind of rotate the money, because we have enough capital to keep those systems self-contained. So a lot of the money leakage wouldn't be there. And then that means that people would have to open up stores in their neighborhoods. There would be a lot of different types of expansion that they wouldn't agree with. Because I see it right now in the area I'm in, where there are none of us at. I'm not even in the United States right now at the moment. There are Indian folks and Pakistani people that own the stores, and people out here are mad about that. They've never seen that before. It's new to them. They don't like it.
Yeah.
They react way differently than us.
So speaking on that, like I'm from New Jersey, and where I live at in central New Jersey, recently Black people have been calling it Little India.
Right.
All right. So when you come here, you come to South Brunswick, you come to New Brunswick, you go to even Franklin Township, areas that used to be a lot of us there is now heavily populated with Pakistani or other non-Black immigrants in the area. And it's very interesting because when I came back home from the service and I started observing the heavy migration of these individuals or these groups of people here, I began, actually, I'm going to keep it real. I felt a certain way.
Right.
It was like, this is not my home. This is not what when I left. Now, I lived all throughout New Jersey. Longside, I love Longside because now they're still very heavily ADOS foundational Black Americans down there in Longside, New Jersey. But Central New Jersey specifically, though, used to be a home base for Black foundational Black Americans, especially New Brunswick, especially before the riot happened. There used to be a lot of Black-owned businesses in the area, but now all of a sudden you see a shift in terms of chain migration, and that's what we don't address. Like, come on, New Jersey. Like, I get it, y'all love having immigrants here, but you need to fix first what you broke.
Right.
But see, in that case, like speaking like as a devil's advocate for their perspective, then they won't have that easy access service labor and a pool of it.
No, not at all.
Pool of easy access service
And most
labor
that's
that
due
they
to
want.
Rutgers and also Robert Wood Johnson in the area.
Exactly.
And what's happening is and I said this years ago to my fiance. I said it to her that expect a change to happen because I saw their 10 to 20-year plan to buy up all the properties. And now you think gentrification is bad, but they're going to do the same thing that they're doing here. They're going to do it to Brooklyn, where she's from.
Right.
Bushwick. Now look at Bushwick. Now it's on steroids here in New Brunswick and also South Brunswick. And there's nothing wrong with progress, but often the people that get left behind are us.
Right.
We're forced to figure out what to do next. Either we move back down south, and then we move back down south. Look what's going on with Atlanta.
Yes.
So how do you get to the root of the issue?
But I think that's a good point you made, because since I live down south now, and you're seeing the influx of immigrants even in Alabama, that's where I live at.
Wow.
And to the point you're seeing them having, when I started seeing them having like West Indian parades down here, I'm like, hold up, y'all having West Indian parades in Birmingham, Huntsville, and other little towns. Even with a town that I live in, I'm seeing an influx of pretty much Black immigrants. They'll come here, set up shop, and I'm talking about like their doctor shops, being a physician. Then they'll go live, let's say, in Georgia, so they can get, double pay, whatever the case is. And then you start seeing more like Jamaican restaurants, African restaurants, and even me coming to school down here a few years ago, you're like, okay, you didn't see this. So they're even infiltrating the South because you know why? They can easily be undocumented, and also too, they can hide out because no one's not going to look for them in these small towns.
Plus, another thing is it's not only us being forced out of the tri-state area and other cities in the north. People are having to North Carolina it up, and it's not just us. They're going to the south, and they're using they're having a reverse Great Migration, and it's crazy because they skipped the line the first time, right after 1964. So you didn't go to the majority Black areas that was around before, where we could have built together. You went right to pop in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. To do your thing, but you in Miami, but you skipped all these other places because it wasn't, there wasn't enough movement to them. But now that those places are becoming hot spots for the Caucasian and the Asian population, and they're using a lot of their foreign currency to shift you out of the area. You're populating areas that we've been moved to, and you want to put your foot. I mean, I get it. It makes sense. You want to put a cultural marker there, like, yo, we're here as well, and I get it. But what is the end goal of that? Like, are you going to do it with respect? Because I'll even parallel it. I've been up here for 5 years, and our cousins, the Nova Scotians, were the primary black group until the mid 60s. Now, when
Mhm.
you think about Black Canada, you think about Caravana and all that. And I like that
Right.
event. I fuck with them people. But nobody knows that there's a place in Nova Scotia called North Preston that's about, I'd say, 67 to 70% black, all Nova Scotian. They're not
Mhm.
moving there. And I've seen houses that are very good quality. I'm talking about what's the most suburban area, a suburban area of Queens, Elmhurst, or those
Mhm.
houses in Long Island, or even like a Midwest suburb, or in Atlanta, daggone Buckhead type joints. There's
Buckhead.
very, very
Mhm.
nice houses. You can easily build up and build black with the people, but I don't see that. Maybe I'm unaware, but it's just not there. They would
Yeah.
rather rent in Toronto and Montreal and do the ethnic niche thing. Like,
Mhm.
try to, I got my little store here, little service here, sell a little weed here, bring my cousin over here, and then we'll do
Mhm.
and it kind of doesn't work like that in the United States because we're way deeper than Scotians. There's only a few 100,000 of them, so they couldn't hold it down. Well, we're
Right.
around, and it's not going to be so easy. But I do see the pattern. Everywhere we go, you go. You're not gonna go to You're not gonna go to Defiance, Ohio, black population 0, and open your restaurant there. Hmm?
No.
What about
'Cause
Detroit?
no.
Yeah.
And the
Now,
reason why I'm laughing about Detroit because so many like ADOS is like in influx. Detroit and Chicago are moving down south to
Right.
places like the Mississippi Delta, in which you're like, oh my God, who will move there if you guys ever visit there? It's like, why would you move there? The nearest, let's say, grocery store is 30 minutes away.
Right.
Because they're raising rent so high in Detroit and Chicago. I used to live in Chicago. They can't the average ADOS can't afford it. Then you go to,
Right.
let's say, Bronzeville. Bronzeville once upon a time was like, oh my God, you don't ever live, past, let's say, 43rd and Cottage Grove. You go to Bronzeville, which was an historic black community, and
Right.
people can't even afford it. They have $1 million townhouses there, and you're like, what? I would never have lived there, like let's say 10 years ago, but now it's prime, real estate. So you see that
Exactly.
everywhere. Me being from Boston, I'm from Boston. I'm from my neighborhood was predominantly black. You go there now, it's
Where you
all
from
Haitian.
in Boston? Where you from in
I'm from
Boston?
Mattapan. I'm from
Oh,
Mattapan.
Murder Pen. Okay.
Yep, I'm from Mattapan, but now is they call it like Haitianville. Everyone, Haitian live there, and they're pushing more of the, ADOS out to Brockton, South Shore
Right.
or North Shore. So you can't even afford it. Like my childhood, home now is like worth $450,000. I'm looking at it like it's no way it should be worth that much money, but because, they have the wealth, they're pushing folks out.
Same with my well, it's my grandma's, but my dad's home in DC is worth that same price. And I'm seeing a lot. It used to be 80% ADOS, and now it's 51, 52%. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing a lot of different faces there. There's always been a
Right.
Salvadoran community, and there's always been African folks there, but now there's a bit more. And are they an issue? No, but it's a different demographic change.
Mhm.
That
hmm
causes different pressures in
definitely.
the
Right.
environment, especially when people named Kelly and Molly and Chad and Brad from the Midwest are interested
Mhm.
in that prime real
Yeah.
estate, and they want to be right next to your cool self
Yep.
so
Yep.
they can change the neighborhood around.
Exactly. And whenever you start seeing them walking in areas like Roxbury, if you guys know anything about Roxbury with their their dogs, you're like, hold on now, this was like once upon a time you will get shot on this corner. So because of, they're closer to downtown, they're closer to their jobs, they're tired of commuting in, You know, you got to deal with the wintertime and the snowstorms and all this other stuff. So, you know, we're witnessing a paradigm shift, and I don't think a lot of us know what time it is. They just think like, I don't know. I think some people are just in the twilight zone.
That too, like with it was kind of done by design. In certain
Mhm.
parts of DC, there weren't any good grocery stores, and they made the schools bad. You know, they didn't. It's like they withheld the resources until we left the area, and then
Yeah.
people were like, "Well, I'm gonna move to this suburban area because they have a better school, or the
Right.
grocery store is near here." It's animal nature to do so. You got to go near the
Mhm.
watering hole. I want to be near where they took the resources. But when you're doing that, you're making yourself an island because we don't
Mhm.
move en masse like that. We
Yeah.
haven't really, like, our migrations are slow and our families get broken up even more. We
Yep.
don't have
Mhm.
any lingual barriers to keep ourselves together. And then
Right.
also, I think this is a problem with that fake wealth culture that people are building up. It's very individualistic while telling people to click up together. You're gonna live together being that individualistic. It doesn't
Exactly.
make any sense.
It does.
Right.
It makes no sense at all. And while they've been pushing that particular agenda there, now we can kind of like, since we're here and we talked about a lot. So we can talk about the Me Too backlash, reversal due to one, legal power, two, a lack of accountability, and three, the automatic outs and safety valves.
Facts.
And that's tie that into intersectionality and how the diaspora uses that as an end without context, flattening our particular arguments.
This is
Mhm.
also factual.
Mhm.
Mm. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. The legal power. Like now, my experiences on Twitter lately, I've been like in the last 24 hours, I was dealing with a lot of helping certain people out because it's kind of like this, you know, it's real easy for you to talk trash behind a screen. Because my thing is
Right.
this, it's like some of what they've been saying is like you wouldn't dare say that in person.
Yes.
Exactly. And like you
Yes.
got, wow, do you have this Caucasian spirit within you with these harsh bars?
Cool
Like you damn
spirit.
near
Yes.
calling me a slave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Literally.
Exactly. Yes. I had somebody say to me that they would slap me and my husband, and that was just like low of low. And I was like, okay, if you're gonna slap me, can you get a visa to come slap me? Because I want you to come do it.
Bow.
And I had to report this person.
Bow.
One person went as far. I had to like do a lot of like beef up my security. I had one person really went through my Instagram to find my husband to DM
Wow.
him and say, "Why would you marry this type of woman?" But you would never say
Wow.
this in my face, though.
Of course not. Of course not. But
At
you
all.
know what's funny? I'd hate to bring up the situation because I'm not a person that likes to give credence to the phrase black on black crime. But
Right.
as you can see in South Africa, not going down. Like that disrespect level or whatever happened in between them, it resulted in violence,
Mhm.
immediate and extreme violence.
Right.
Right.
People being punished in a somewhat primitive manner. And I don't like associating words like that and savage with our people because we're the originals of this planet and we set certain standards.
Mhm.
Hold on, I gotta get my son something to drink. Hold on.
Mhm.
But speaking about the Me Too movement and also this
Right.
whole thing involving, lately, and I wasn't even going to touch on Malik Yoba. Like last week, I put up a meme, and for me, it was kind of like a one and done thing because it's kind of like, listen, man, you're not going to keep pushing this agenda down our throats, but they're tying the alphabet community into the Me Too movement as well,
Exactly.
and I get the sister's intent involving the Me Too movement when she created it, but somehow it's been hijacked by white people.
Yeah.
And look at who they're specifically targeting: our black men. So now my
Yep.
question is this: is there an attack on black masculinity?
Yes.
That's what I want to know. Like,
It's a major attack. It's like this is the thing that I was noticing. it's like the Me Too movement is like a protective class, right?
Mm,
And like as as ADOS folks, especially, you guys being, men, it's like y'all can't say anything and you're unprotected. But once if I say something to protect you guys or say something, then I'm, my experience, my voice is getting erased. Because it's like, well, you have a vagina, you have breasts, you have a uterus, you should be rocking with us. It don't work that way for me. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Because when I have my issues as being a black woman, being underpaid, or just even dealing with medical apartheid,
Yeah.
dying in childbirth, whatever the case is, where's the advocacy for me? Also, too, where's the advocacy to keep the black families together? So, yeah, I have a problem with that if they're over here trying to step to, black men because I'm married to one. And
Right.
also, too, that's my lineage. That's like so you're disrespecting my father, my brothers, all the men in my family, and just, for the 400 years of lineage of my family. So I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'm going to rock with you, homegirl, because, me too, whatever the case is. And we've been brutally, raped, pillaged for 400 plus years.
Oh yeah, most deaf. And then we dealt with Jim Crow. We got
Yeah.
hit with Iran, crack, mass incarceration, and all of that. That we don't, we've been fighting forever.
Right.
So that's why it's really funny that
alongside each other.
like black
Yes.
women that love to talk about how apathetic and lazy we are. They're setting a third. First of all, Negro, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my ancestors fighting.
Right.
You wouldn't be here getting these jobs if it wasn't for affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then this leads me to my second question. All right. My second question is this: why is there so much hatred or contempt for black women that embrace their femininity from the black feminism movement? Why? What's wrong with being a whole woman? And I'm not talking about gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying flat out, she understands the power of who she is as a black woman, a black goddess.
Not only that, she understands the difference between power and strength. She has the
Right.
power to make things move without physical strength. She can make
Mm-hmm.
people of strength move for her. She doesn't have to
Right.
take that role.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely hit the nail on the head with that one, Meta. And that's what I want to know. I didn't hear a female's perspective on this because me as a man, I say it and then there's an issue.
Right. I feel like there's a lot of limitations and boundaries we put on ourselves as black women. A lot of black women don't want to go against the grain of being, feminine. Because we hear like, 80% of us are, single parents. We got to be both the mom and dad. So where's the area where I can be feminine at? You know what I'm saying? A lot of us haven't tapped into it because let's be honest, and I can say I done took enough whatever, this week. It haven't been exemplified.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I'm talking about if you don't see it in your household,
Right.
being uplifted, then you're gonna, your mom's the first teacher. Your mom's is a nurturer. So if you don't see that within your household, you're gonna be like, yo, of course I'm gonna go against the grain and look at entertainment or look at what my homegirl's doing, and I'm gonna do that. Unless you hang with a good circle that's tapped into that femininity and they understand, like, yo, not only I'm a strong black woman, but also too I know I have a balance. Because we can be strong and have no balance neither.
Definitely.
So a lot of times, a lot of women don't want to show that side, like, oh, I can be soft, I can be feminine, I can be nurturing. It's always like, I got to be hard because these dudes ain't nothing. And I have a big problem with that because it's like, how do you know all these guys are nothing and then they go run into the arms of the other? We can talk about that later. And then they treat you even worse. So, it's a really uphill battle. And also, too, it's this whole, I don't like that whole beef thing, like, oh, I'm beefing with the black man. He ain't this, he ain't that. No, sis, that's the dude you dealt with. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's the dude you dealt with, you attracted. And you also need to switch that attitude. So it's a lot of layers to it.
Right.
Coming from my perspective, and I don't think people, want to peel back the layers and be like, yo, you got some, like I always tell people all the time, I'm like, you got some toxicity to yourself too that you need to heal. But a lot of times they always want to put the blame on someone else because they always want to play the victim. And we don't got time for that.
One of the easiest things to do. It's
Right.
easy to say that to the other person, right? And within the context of personal relationships, I think oftentimes we don't take the time out for self-reflection and ask the hard questions of ourselves, like, what can I be doing better? How can I heal? What are my triggers? We don't ask those questions, right? Do I need to seek counseling?
Right.
And being one of those Black men here, I have no problem. Like, I've dated, and then with my fiance, she knows for a long time. Like, and I have no problem going to see a therapist and a counselor because I understand the importance of it. Because sometimes you need an objective party, right? And as Black men, we kind of look down on that. In some ways we look down on it, but I think there's an uptick in the fact that there are Black men out there now realizing the value in counseling.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you need an objective party as a sounding board sometimes. And also who can give you some tools to work through your ish, right?
Right.
And then also I realize even me now as a life coach, it helps me become better at helping others become a better whole person. So
exactly.
All these things are necessary within the ADOS movement, B1 Brigade, and also the Financial Black American movement as well. I think it's all necessary. I believe that if we're going to talk about reparative justice, we need to deal with our mental health and also our personal relationships. There can be no reparations claim without the Black family.
Right.
Right? And a Black family means me as a Black man, I gotta be whole. And you as a Black woman, you gotta be whole. And we gotta deal with our ish together, not apart.
Right.
Now, there are times where you can see yourself as an individual because it takes two whole individuals to make a family. And that's how we gotta start viewing things. That's my personal opinion on that one. People can quote me, RT me, I don't give a damn. But at the end of the day, guess what? Black women, you're not gonna get anywhere without Black men.
Right. And, to segue to what you just said, and this is the thing I had a problem with a lot of homegirls. I remember being in grad school, they had this long list. I ain't gonna front, I had a list too. And it was so unrealistic when we look at the scope of, being, Black Americans and the state of Black men. You talking about you want this dude to be like have quote unquote Jay-Z's money. You want him to be a rapper. You want him to be a lawyer. You want him to be a thug, but you want him to be a gentleman. Like, that is like, what you don't know what you want. And how are you going to, and then you want him to make six figures and take care of you when you have kids so you can stay at home, and don't have to worry about going to work. Where are you going to find that at when, a bulk of our Black men are incarcerated?
Wow.
Yo, Jesus dropped the bomb. Most of our Black men are incarcerated. So then, mind you, and most of our Black men are incarcerated due to nonviolent drug offenses.
Yes.
This is factual.
Come on.
Yes.
And then you want to say Black men ain't ish.
Yeah.
Not only that, with the nonviolent drug offenses, they're incarcerated for extra time because somebody in a laboratory added baking soda to cocaine, and white people consume that at the highest rate of anybody in the world.
Right.
And it's wild. Just
really
one
wild.
ingredient.
I was discussing that with my fiance earlier today. I'm like, yo, like, when you go throughout your history, like you do your history in terms of crack cocaine, right? Look at crack. Cocaine is just added with baking soda, right? You make it into little rocks. Why is it that they got more time than the white people who were buying cocaine for personal use?
Right.
Why? And then all of a sudden there's an opioid crisis.
Exactly.
We didn't get treatment. We got jail time. Get jail time. We got shot.
Yeah.
Because police, law enforcement officers started to overdose. Oh yeah, and here's another thing I wanted to bring up. You know how people keep saying, well, they accidentally had contact with it without any gloves on. Let me hip y'all to something because I may or may not have some a little personal experience in that area because I might know some people who used to give me some money. But yeah, if you touch it, it doesn't do that to you
No, it
when
doesn't.
you touch it. You have to
Mhm.
touch a lot. You have to touch a
Exactly.
lot in a certain way. You
Right.
have to do
And
it.
I
You have to do it.
come from a household of hustlers. Come on, man. I lived in.
Yeah, man.
I'm not going to
And
drop
the
names, but
cops,
a certain family member of mine was hustling, and I had one, and I'm gonna say my biological mother. She used to be a user. I have no problem saying it on open air. But the issue is this: in terms of contact, like you said, it has to be live, right? So,
yeah,
Mhm.
man.
but put it this way:
Somebody,
cut the damn check.
yeah, cut
Right.
the check, man.
Cut the damn check.
Just
It's that simple.
please do this because these games that are being played are very disrespectful and they're
It,
obvious to the point of where the average mundane person is even seeing it like, hey,
right.
this doesn't look like this. Until a
Exactly.
celebrity has an argument, then they're distracted.
Right. And I
Oh,
feel like,
yeah.
they should definitely cut the check. But if you have a problem, see, and this is what Dr. Darius said this week when I went to the conference. He said, if you haven't been checking that you are a Black American on any other boxes, don't be thinking you're going to get a check. Because don't be Black when it's convenient. Don't be ADOS when it's convenient.
Ether. You know, that convenience factor, and that's why all these damn mulattoes, biracial babies, are crying right now. I saw a Facebook post, and there's a group of biracial people, and saying like, okay, cool. If you want to, I get it. You don't want to just exclude certain family members out of your particular lineage, but guess what? At the end of the day, baby, you Black, right?
Right.
African American, but you sitting here, all you want to do is acknowledge the fact that you got a white daddy or Asian or whoever it might be, and you say nothing about being an African American or ADOS because it sounds better to be other.
Right.
And at the end of the day, when it comes to reparations, and I rock with Sandy Darity, I've been rocking with him for a while now. Love him. I'm not a fanboy. Don't get it twisted. What I'm saying is that he has some sound policies that he's trying to help get implemented with the backing of the whole ADOS movement and Foundation Black Americans. And the thing is this, is that they're going to be a little upset when they find out they ain't going to get a check. You've been putting down other this entire time, baby.
Exactly.
So don't come crying to me about the fact that you wasn't cut a check. Listen, my family is very proud of being African American, even though there's some in my family who love to talk about their German ancestry. I don't give a damn about German ancestry. These people were cannibals.
Yeah.
And slave owners. And guess what? They raped a lot of my, maternal lineage.
Yeah.
They were savages.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, put it this way. If you ain't checking that box as that, don't expect the check. Don't expect, when we say check, we're not saying is this one check. What we're saying is it's going to be generational.
Exactly.
Right? Wealth is generational, intergenerational to be exact. And so now with that being said, we have to be clear and distinct with our particular lineage. So when we say American descendants of slaves, we're not worshiping slavery. I think that a lot of like the Pan-African movement gets it twisted. ADOS is very much Pan-African. We're just very distinct. Right. We're not saying that there is just like a one-way relationship. We're saying it has to be, it has to be
reciprocal and respectful.
And respectful. And here's the thing. When it comes to white supremacy, listen, when we get our check and when it happens, and when it does, if it happens in my generation, then cool. If it don't, cool. But when it happens, then we can come to the table together, because when you have your money and we got our money, the Caribbean has their money, Brazil got their bread, Cuba got their bread. Then we can talk about dismantling white supremacy together.
Right.
We can't do that without their number one weapon, capital.
Exactly.
We have to get the capital to do so. You can't go to war without any capital at all. period.
Right.
And
I think it was Tupac who said, you gotta get your money together before you go to war.
Yeah.
He understood it. Rest his soul. But what I'm saying is, it's important that we understand who we are as a people. We are very distinct and different. Listen, when we got sold into slavery, and I said it in on Twitter, you Negroes over there in Africa, y'all sold us for nigger trinkets.
Yeah.
And now my blood is mixed with European blood, German, Jewish, Dutch, and all this ish.
Yeah.
I ain't pure no more. I'm not saying that, listen, I'm not denying my African lineage, but what I'm saying is that I'm more than just an African in America.
exactly. I'm somebody who is part of the formation of the nation that people are standing on and coming to, and the culture that influences the world to this day. It's something
Right.
completely new. It's an extension and it's a new thing. Because I've noticed people trying to downplay our contributions to the collective culture by saying it's just an extension of older traditions. And I'm like, it's similar and it may have derived from that, but we weren't even allowed to have our drums to keep that going.
Exactly.
We made something new.
Hands and feet. That's where call response comes from. And then we look at jazz and blues infused with rhythm. Now you talk about rhythm and blues. Now you look at gospel.
Right.
Who gospel? It was ADOS.
Yep.
We got jazz, ADOS, rock and roll. See, it wasn't called rock and roll then, though. So we say, that's why I take it personal when some folks say, oh, African Americans ain't got culture. So when we break it down this way, and y'all don't want to acknowledge this, there's a reason why we have certain dialects, regional dialects.
Right.
And what you call code switching. No, we do that because it's kind of like we speak, is this what we do? But also we talk a lot of metaphors. We talk about, storytelling, all that. Okay, you can say, okay, well, what about the griots? Our storytelling is a little bit different than the griots.
Exactly. And they weren't doing it syncopated over a beat.
Nope.
In that specific manner. Just like with we can get into that with the whole Jamaican toasting thing. There actually is no such thing as Jamaican toasting. Count Machuki bought an African American jive slang book and listened to the African American DJs in New Orleans and Miami, where him and another brother bought records and they imitated the slang and the mannerisms and the diction and the pacing and the cadence of those African American DJs from those two locations and brought that back to Jamaica.
Facts. Speaking of Meta, okay, Disco King Mario. Let's go into that whole thing in the Black Spades and how Kool Herc wasn't allowed to play what? Reggae music. Okay?
They weren't having
parties. And
they did not like it.
It wasn't called hip hop at that time. It was called what? Disco.
It was called disco.
Yep, disco. Now
and break, and you know what? Bronxdale boy music.
Yes.
B-boy.
Yeah.
B-boy.
B-boy, right.
B-boy. And see, and remember this. Foundation of Black Americans checked who? KRS-One. Okay, we checked him. He had to acknowledge who? Us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So for all these Black immigrants who have no understanding of our history, culture, and lineage, don't try to wipe us out of our contributions to society, American society to be exact. Without that fact, there was a Black man behind electricity. He don't get no credit.
Sure don't.
There's a Black man behind the creation of what? The cell phone and also the internet. ADOS.
Yeah.
All what you see here in America was because someone from slavery was creative enough to make something out of nothing.
Right.
Literally nothing. Even down home cooking was something out of nothing.
Yeah.
You can say all damn day long. Well, it was kind of like sort of like West African tradition, soul food cooking. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Don't get it twisted. This land is different than that land there.
Exactly.
We're not saying that we're what we're saying is we're distinct. We're just like,
give us our distinction.
Very different. And we had no y'all didn't send one damn boat for us.
Sure didn't.
They didn't have the resources to do so.
Don't get it twisted. And so when you bring up Mansa Musa, I wonder where most of his wealth came from. Did it come from slavery?
Right.
I don't know. Because at the end of the day, why were y'all fighting so much? Don't say anything about the European colonizers because they came much later.
Mm-hmm.
Some of y'all
they were in different ethnic groups and they were competing for resources.
Exactly.
Everybody else.
That's why this is why it's called race. Dr. Claude Anderson told us this. It's called race now. What are we racing toward with nothing?
Right.
I want to know. I need to know. But now, okay, since we're touching on now at this point intersectionality, and y'all want to use the now you're trying to use the Me Too movement to segue into now the intersectionality argument to flatten our argument. I need someone to kind of chime in on that one right there.
And the crazy thing is the Me Too movement was started by, I don't know if she's ADOS, but it was started here in Alabama. Because the sister went down here to school at Alabama State, and she had her first Me Too movement with about like 10 ADOS Selma young ladies from Selma.
Yeah. And speaking of
all of a sudden,
Go ahead. You good.
No,
Go ahead.
and then I was saying, then all of a sudden when she had, did the hashtag, Me Too, Alyssa, what's her name? Alyssa Milano. Who was she on? Who's the boss? Anyways, she pretty much hijacked the whole movement. And then just pretty much threw Tariana Burke to the side, like, okay, yep, you was a work mule. Next.
Wow, a work mule?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they want black women to be the work mule. Because, some black women, they get like, oh, yeah, I helped save the Democratic Party, hence Doug Jones being in the Senate.
Right. I got you. I got you. Now, so then, with that being said, with the whole Me Too movement, now we can talk about black men now being the only predator versus predator, right? And violence initiated. Mm-hmm. All right. So Meta, Andrea, what do y'all think about this whole debacle involving this thing here? Like now, often this is my personal opinion on this. Like when black men initiate contact between black men, often it's equal versus equal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's never like, for example, an apex predator versus like, a victim. It's not really that. It's not like, at least from what I've seen and the fights that I've had, at least for me, from what I see, is normally like I said, it's equal versus equal. It's not like this thing where it's like the skill levels are that much different. So like, why are black men are just seen as like this big ass monster, and they never ever point at or discuss like the white male predator?
Man. And you said white men looking at as predators. They've been a predator since the beginning of time.
That's facts.
Like, I'm gonna use an example. Like, there's so much in the news about R. Kelly. Before him was Bill Cosby, right? But meanwhile, Harvey Weinstein been running around in the streets like was nothing. Like I'm immune.
And
the thing is, the whole entire industry knew about Harvey Weinstein and nothing happened.
Super facts. And
the only person that did something that was his personal. And mind you, this dude he doesn't have the same type of wealth as him, and that was Dame Dash, and he slapped the shit out of him.
Facts.
Right.
This like and it's ill because even the punishment, he's probably gonna get off in his case. The
Of
media
course.
coverage and the reactions aren't the same, and then people have built-in excuses like these memes coming out. Well, there's a list of Lifetime movies and all these channels, so you can't say that. And it's like, yo, how do you have outs for everything? You're not
Mhm.
even viewing it in the context. Like, do y'all gather up on Twitter and Discord and just like, well, I got something for these niggas. First you say Hotep, Hotep. Then you say rape apologist. And it's like, first of all, I don't think I'm from Egypt. My name's not Egyptian. I got my honorable name up there. That's not even my attribute. Second
Mhm.
of all, what? Rape apologist? I didn't say I agreed with anybody's actions, and I didn't even bring up the man. But since people want to do that, it's ill. This how is this pattern of responses already built in instead of just looking at the context for what it is? Yeah, it's kind
Right.
of ill. You just want to keep focusing on this alleged toxicity and try to run this program 24/7 instead of,
Mhm.
hopping outside of that. Like, why is that program so empowering? What is monitoring us and making us, focus upon each other more gonna do? Like, nigga, nigga, black man, black man, black man, black man, bad. What is that gonna do? Because these shaming tactics aren't helping the behavior collectively improve at all. People are still going to be people. That action is still going to take place, and it's still going to be taboo in our community. We're not the people that have the accepted date rapes in the frat room. That's not popping like that. If somebody was
Mhm.
outed as being that dude, oh man, this dude really, really a rapist. Wouldn't somebody beat his ass already? you know like just a
Mhm.
random dude, like say if it was a popular, like just a popular cat around the hood, and he did that to a popular girl, and there was proof, like some of these white dudes where they go to court and they get out, it would be a completely different approach to the situation. Some would have got his ass beat, somebody would have handled him, etc., etc. I'm just speaking from my perspective and from what I've seen. Like there was a guy I knew of that was harming young girls, and his name was Adam, matter of fact, and they got Adam multiple times to
Mhm.
where he couldn't exist on that block anymore because they just kept brutalizing that man. I don't know where he's at now. Probably
Right.
some, what I mean. But in other folk cases, I kind of don't see that, especially living over here. I went into a store and someone's like, well, this guy just got out for molestation and he's walking around
Hmm.
freely, walking around, just walking around, you know, just walking around.
Interesting.
And I,
Interesting.
I don't want that for us. I don't want that to be allowed in our community, but it's ill. It's like we don't really examine that. And yeah, I get it. We're supposed to fix the home front first and we're supposed to focus on our own issues. But within our own issues, are we gonna focus on our own issues, or are we gonna talk about all these young dope boys fucking on grown ass women? No, we're not gonna talk about that much because it'll
Mhm.
be individualized. You feel me? That's
Mhm.
that's kind of rug sweeping. Or on the other side, how some of these young men standing outside are being preyed upon by older white men, just like our young women. But we're not going to
Mhm.
really talk about that because it's a point to make fun of somebody, like, oh, well, you're soft or whatever. You see what I mean? It's not,
Right.
people aren't looking at it like our boys can't be vulnerable, our boys can't be victim. I don't want, all this victim creep, because I have heard that term victim creep where everybody's rushing toward victimhood, but there has to
Mhm.
be equal accountability and also, you know, I don't want to say shared pain, but shared acknowledgement. We've only acknowledged certain stuff like this happens, this happens, this happens. Even when we acknowledge when black men get killed, there was a big emphasis on the smaller percentage of black women that got killed by police, which is super duper fucked up. Shouldn't happen at
Right.
all. But if you look at the numbers, it's nowhere near. It's not in comparison. They have to put multiple years together or a decade together just to equal 1 year of us. You feel
Right.
me? And none of them should have happened during that decade period. But it's the numbers remain that way, and it's skewed kind of funny. Like, and all this, these things, they seem separate and disparate, but I see a pattern within them. It's kind of like our problems get used as a springboard and a platform when it comes to black men. Like, all right, they're gonna go protest, but they're really doing it for clout. And then when they get the clout, they want to be disassociated with the movement, like Shorty from Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And then after that, chastise the person that the movement was supposed to be centered on, the victim of the situation. Well, this person is dead, so they can't really speak for themselves. Well, I can speak for this person. I'm just like him. We're in the same ethnic group. I'm from the same kind of neighborhood. I've been in negative police interactions more than once. And one of them even said, I'm glad you didn't run because I would have shot you in the back. Had hella pistols pointed at me by cops and random ass white men.
Right.
Feel me? So I know personally it's not for certain sisters to speak on unless they had that lifestyle, unless they were deep in the life. And then speak on that too. But that's not the ones that are speaking. We have a lot of, I want to call it revolutionary Ashley and Hillary Banks. You grew up in that kind of background. You had it. Shea butter Twitter, you had it real nice, and there's no shame in that because I have relatives that are like that. And at one point in time of my life, I did live with my mom in a gated community in a 2-story house that she had built for herself because she worked her way through the military and was an officer. Shout outs to her. But I also lived in projects, also lived outside. I lived in an industrial neighborhood that's a cancer cluster that military black people retired to just to get shit on by the environment and all the factories they work in. The houses that they had built thinking they got a better life and dying of all types of lung cancer, smelling metal, drinking Flint level water. So I know about all kinds of different lifestyles, and I'd expect that to be put across the board. You feel me? Like, okay, I know about these experiences because I've experienced them, and I'd rather have that experience being mirrored in one of my brothers. And see, a problem with those foundations like BLM is they want to move us out of the center. And that even ties in with the black immigrant folks. See, they have intact family units where they're from. They have that, so they can speak on they don't like having a male dominated situation when you're here. So why don't you bring that energy to your home outside? Why don't you hop in the middle, go to Lagos where a whole bunch of brothers are standing outside and pop that shit. See that there. Because they're doing it in South Africa because I think, after the white people done did that to them, it's a little easier to introduce. Women are heading a lot of households there due to a lot of issues. They got smashed on, and the wealth is still in white hands. So the maneuvering level isn't easy. But in places like Ghana and Nigeria, that's not the case. So of course, you're going to see certain community aspects that may mirror the European, but that's not the case with us. And they're bringing that over to us. Just like their disdain for lighter skinned, black people, because they have a tiered system based on color where mixed people actually matter and they get extra resources because it's a black area and a mixed person is a rarity. So an elite white person must have came there for that. There's not going to be too much po white trash chilling in black country. Except for South Africa, and I brought that up earlier. The black middle class, I saw footage of them enjoying a nice barbecue, posted up on their benches, watching the remnants of the South African white poor population kind of die off. And they said it was sad to watch. I was like, shit, it's how the tables have turned. Feel me?
Right.
But that's something that they have there.
Mm.
We don't have that much there. You feel me? Like in other, but let me get back to the part that mixed thing. Like there's poor mixed people in South Africa because their situation mirrors ours. White people ruled that joint and didn't end the colonization until fairly recently. But somewhere in West Africa or Northern Africa, if you have direct white descendants, you probably have some of their resources too. So you're going to be able to
Mhm.
flex that. Now, when you come to the United States, they see the people that mirror these folks and they look just like them, but it ain't like that because we mix with white trash
Mm.
because we have admixture from rape. Some of us might come out with freckles and red hair and blue eyes
Mhm.
and green eyes and wavy hair. Just like my brother, he's Pan African. He likes to compare my look because I'm a little lighter to the Shua Arabs in Nigeria. And I had to tell him they call themselves Arabs because they've been
Mhm.
colonized too. And you know why they're lighter? Because those people from those olive skinned swarthy men had access to their women and created that subgroup of black people.
Mhm.
And even that ties into the Northern Sudanese, who we all put that blue flag up for them. But I do distinctly remember them enslaving the Southern Sudanese even as recently as the early 2000s and trading
Yeah.
fellow black people. So they have a completely different dynamic than we do based on tone, lineage, hair
Right.
texture, and ethnicity. And
Mhm.
some folks may bring that over here and it's a parallel system, but it's not a parallel system. A lot of our paradigms are flipped. Men do not run the black community. Mixed people are not automatically rich, and being light skinned ain't gonna get you nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
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 Wow. Wow. That's powerful right
I
there.
know.
Someone gonna say
Mhm.
you cute and want to have your baby. Woo, big whoop.
Fetishizing, of certain people.
Of
And
course.
now we can, go into like even that with even certain interracial relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at now with that is kind of like, I would prefer that, we stay with our own, but even with that, it's kind of like I get why people do what they do. But we talk about the fetishizing, right? Okay, so
Mhm.
let's on that, and then also let's tie that into like slavery, right? So they love to use this whole thing of like when they date interracially, and I never forget seeing this repost by Tariq Nasheed, and this chick put up, and I don't know what she was, but she was black. I don't know what her ethnicity was necessarily, but racially she was black, and the hashtag she put 12 years a wife.
Mm.
Mm.
And we
Mm.
So
into
years a
like the
wife.
whole thing involving um cuckolding.
Whoa.
Mm.
And
Whoa.
I never
Hmm.
say this podcast will probably piss some people off, but things that we gotta talk about. It's kind of like, we want to kind of like, just
Man.
over certain things and just ignore it.
Mhm.
Why do you date? No, not why, but how do you date and why do you date who you date or marry in this case? Okay, so then oftentimes you hear from these sisters that date white men.
Mm.
Um, it's often because black men ain't shit. Um,
Mhm.
it's always something like negative, right? But the
Right.
thing, it's not my fault that you made poor choices in black men, and that
Right.
doesn't say that black men are necessarily the issue. What we're talking about is the mindset that somehow white is just better,
Exactly.
right? My baby needs to have straight hair. Okay, but there's plenty of black men that have straight hair,
Mhm.
right? There's all types of different black in America. Like you don't like. I'm not saying that we gotta be like Well, actually, I'm going to say I personally believe that we need to stay with our own. But other than that, if you make a personal decision not to, that's your decision. I respect it, whatever. But don't bring into the discussion that somehow that the other is better.
Right.
Right.
But like you said, you hear that all the time.
If you're going to choose a situation, even on my end, because I'm engaged in one of them situations right now, but I would never disparage mine. And majority of mine, 99% of my situations before this were of my own. And that's not why I'm in this situation, because I prefer something else to mine. But I see that a lot. And I think that's abject and disgusting cooning, where I see dudes like with some ratchet white joints too. Like, okay, like West Side Columbus, or even in Mass. What's one of them places? Because I remember I did a show in Cambridge, and there was one of them Southie rats. The Southie rat came to the show, and her boyfriend was there. This is a little sub story, and she was mad friendly with her dude there. You feel me? And cats,
Yeah.
I know from the city, like they wife them joints and allow them to make all kinds of disrespectful jokes.
Right.
You know,
Right.
about art. That's still your sister, that's still your aunt, that's still your mom, that's still your cousin, that's still your best friend. If something happens to you, or say if that woman called the police on you, who you gonna come to? You gonna come to those exact people. Or if something crazy goes down, those people are the ones that are gonna be rallying the troops, using their power to get the strength moving. So it's best you
Right.
keep that rapport. Cause I've noticed that on our end too. You know what I mean? That's that accountability talking. And even on the other side, like I'll name an example. This African joint I know is in Columbus, and she was mad at black men. So she started making her post, and then you see her around these frat boys wearing this weird makeup and this red lipstick, and something bad happened as the result of that. You were fetishized, and people got you
Right.
full of intoxicants, and then
Yep.
something else happened. Now, am I saying that's her fault? No, but that situation is not uncommon. They're known for that. There's a pattern of that. It's been
Yep.
like okay, I'll even name another example. Okay, you know about the young girl in Chicago that was found in the freezer and they had all kinds of conspiracies? There was a white girl at Ohio State that got found in the freezer, raped up. They had that shit quiet and covered. Nobody got in
Okay.
trouble. To the point, even if you look it up, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that was an urban myth and a rumor." Nah, everybody on campus know about that when it happened, because that's how them frat boys got down.
Yep.
Like they were really on some super duper rape maneuvers. Often, their parties were not safe places for women. Period. They were mad aggressive, so they get down like that. But people, they ignore that history, or they don't have enough history with us, and they're new here, and they get with a few bad examples, and there's a cultural clash, and you want to slide over there, and then a tragic situation befalls. Oh, that's a large spider. I gotta get you out of here. Hold on.
Wow.
Yeah, some really deep discussions going on, right?
Yeah, we have these. Yeah, exactly. And you see more and more black women marrying or dating white men because of the wealth, because of accessibility to something that is blocking them. And like you said, poor choices. Oh, black men ain't shit. Black men ain't this. And then you see them. They want a white savior.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's
and
so yep.
They feel like a lot of times white men are going to treat them better, but I have seen, certain circumstances in which, sisters go date white men, and they feel like they're going to get married after 6 months, and I'm like, sis, you've been with this dude for 6 years, and it's not popping off. So you see a lot of that. You see a lot of also too, as y'all mentioned about, I want to have a mixed baby. I don't want my baby to be dark as me, or I don't want my baby. Yeah, this weird stuff. I don't want my baby to have quote unquote African features, but you don't know what's on your family tree, you don't know what's in his
Right.
DNA neither, because his
You know,
black great grandma may come out,
yeah.
and you're a child.
You
So
know
it's
what? You
all
know
types
what's
of weird
odd
ideology.
about that? Like other cultures, like Afro Latino and Caribbean cultures, have something called Mejor La Raza and Miento, which is racial white.
Mm,
It's built in,
Mhm.
and part of that they aspire to grow into whiteness due to the Spanish colonialism. So that is
mhm.
there, and some even bring that to us. But
Right.
just on a subtle level, not to interrupt or anything, but that just remind me of it where the girl's like, oh, I want to have a mixed baby, just on the surface fetish. I think that's cute, blue eyes, oh, they're going to love the baby. But there's people that do that in an organized manner. You feel me? Like
Mhm.
that is their joy. And they tell their kids that, like, I was in a relationship with a young woman from Miami, and there were words for the kids that didn't fit the profile. Pasa de Cabela, raisin hair.
Hmm.
Yeah, things like that.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a my great aunt, actually. She's late 70s. She was married to a white man for like 25 years, and she never brought him down south. And my aunt hated white people because of the era she grew in, Jim Crow Alabama. And so when she, did the northern migration to, Boston, it was like, oh, I hate white people, I hate white people. But she ended up marrying, white guys, and he ended up dying and leaving his wealth. But that wealth wasn't easily accessible. And I think people have to understand, like, just because you marry someone, who's white or whatever the case is, doesn't mean that, oh, you're going to get his wealth, because she had to go through a lot of legal processes just to get, what was rightfully hers, because she's fighting also against, other relatives. She also had to leave her house. Like, it was just a lot of crazy mess that's still going on. But I think a lot of times people, feel like, well, I married, white, I'm kind of escaping blackness too.
And you can't ever escape it. It's permanent. It's part of us.
Mhm.
It's within.
Yep. And speaking on that, I mentioned I think it was yesterday, just even how we walk is just different, right? There's a certain swagger about us that's different from other groups of people that a lot of people don't realize. Oh, well, they recognize it, they see it, but they try to imitate it. But the thing is,
Yeah, they emulate it and commoditize it for themselves.
Mhm.
it for themselves, but it goes so much deeper than that, culturally speaking. And that's why, Andrea was talking about the Nigerian professors and I think it was the dean of students over there.
The dean of the business school, yeah.
Business school. Okay, so you know, you picked up right on. You picked up on it very quick the difference between us and them, and
Mhm.
I said what I said because it's kind of like you can just tell, like just even how we walk is just different.
Yes.
Move differently, and then the accent you heard that was like the dead giveaway. So you knew
Yeah.
immediately must be Nigerian, right? And so now I'm touching on that to relate it to like interracial dating for the fact that even like with a lot of them, you will see that, right? You will see the fact that they have the mind as much as they talk about the exploitation and colonialism that's going on in Nigeria, they still will shuck and jive for the powers that be.
Right.
Yep. Because they
Meanwhile,
recognize that it's a power.
yeah, it's like the utter not just utter disrespect, but it's more like y'all just don't. This is why y'all are perfect for college admissions when it comes to our HBCU.
Mhm.
You're politically apathetic.
Yes.
So don't take it personal. It's just we acknowledge that flaw when we're speaking up about it, and then now all of a sudden, when we speak up about it, we're the ones being xenophobic. Now,
Exactly.
and
then
and
you
I really think they should retire using that term in references
Yes.
to us, especially with them people burning and whooping them over there because they went in their country and decided to work hard and whatever else that they say that they do in other places. And I don't condone burning my fellow black man or woman, but that's actual xenophobe. That's what xenophobia is, not
Right.
this criticism. Because we're not making fun of anybody's accents right now. We're not calling anybody names. We're not saying
Mm-mm.
go home. We're
None
not
of that.
saying anything. I'm saying go home with the same energy. Like when you go on a vacation, please pop that feminist stuff in front of your traditional uncle. Better yet, don't go to the middle of the city. Go to the village and pop that.
Exactly.
And talk to your chief.
Right. Yeah, talk to the chief
Woo.
of the village and talk that mess.
I wonder what'll happen.
Because we saw that video with that someone posted it on Twitter. So I saw that video with the sister. I'm saying sister, very loosely, but I'm saying is her being chastised and beaten down by a whole bunch of, I believe there were Nigerian men, and
Mm-hmm.
out in town, like, and she was pregnant, and I'm like, this is something that we don't do. We don't do that.
No.
That's true.
Like, so don't talk about like, okay, you come here and you love pointing out the fact that we crackheads and we criminals is in the third.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're a beating pregnant woman.
Right.
Yeah, and let's even be detailed on that. Like, uh, people from the suburban communities and rural communities travel into our neighborhoods and area to acquire their get high, and some of them like to
Mm-hmm.
stay and stand around. So it can't be just we're using the shit and selling the shit. It can't just be that. Oh, you're selling it to your own people. I don't really think so. Cause I see long videos of people
Hmm.
doing the heroin knot in majority black Philadelphia, and a lot of them are white. A
Yeah.
lot of them, even in Baltimore. Baltimore is what 60-70% black, and
Yeah.
most
Mm-hmm.
people I see doing the knot are white, and the black people I see doing the knot are over the age of 40. They're
Right.
part of that
Right.
old heroin generation dying off from before. But these other
Mm-hmm.
people I see are in a variance of ages, and some of them even have that new hype beast Kanye West skateboard style, like the new little Brads and Chads that like trap music a lot. You
Mm-hmm.
better get y'all's kids because they're fucking around with that Fetty, and it's not
Yeah.
looking correct. And that high death rate when they keep bringing up, and I just want our brothers and sisters from other places to know that
Hmm.
absolutely ridiculous. It's like 80 to 1,000, 90,000 people a year dying off that. There are
Yeah.
15,000 deaths a year via gun, and not all of those, or even most of those, are us.
Not at
So
all.
that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be taken into account before people criticize our actions. Not only that, how fast the United States moves, and even Canada in certain cities, it can be you tomorrow.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anything can happen.
Anything can definitely happen. And so, with all that being said, I believe that what's happening with all of that, obviously, overall, this entire conversation is about social engineering, and there's something very insidious that's been happening in terms of lately, even like the doxing that's been happening um, online, and like sharing of personal information. And so we can tie that into this current discussion now, like what we're talking about, right? So um, it's a heavy weapon. That's what I'm saying. Like, so maybe Meta could talk a little bit more about that.
Man, okay. What they started doing, this is on the right. I saw a lot of people on the right wing and do this years back, especially the 4chan dudes with the doxing. It was one of their techniques. They would
Mm-hmm.
get people's personal information from OSINT, open source and intelligence, your digital footprint, and go
Mm-hmm.
to town using your personal info. Now, people on the left end, two wings, one dirty ass bird, have started resorting to this when they run into disagreement or critique, especially when it comes to people that are affiliated with or supporters of ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, or foundational Black Americans. And it even happened to me. I got the dirty page made about me with my real name
Yeah, I
based on
remember.
a city I haven't lived in a decade. So I thought that was quite amusing. They talked about my
Mm-hmm.
music or whatever. It was just inaccurate. They said I had two sons. I have one son and
Right.
one daughter, and just a whole bunch
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. Like it's just like, wow, you don't have the information right. You just made up all this, and it was a man. I could tell it was a man who did it. That's what makes it even more pathetic. At the behest of a rapper,
Mm.
and this rapper,
Mm,
he has a dedicated group of fans that prefer to troll online at his behest instead of attending concerts and buying albums, which would help his revenue out, rather than trolling online and making 40 to 60 aliases. And a lot of these people are non-blacks, like
Mhm.
one was an Indo-Trini who claimed to have Native Canadian ancestry as well. And I saw the picture as a white guy. And I was like, okay, you listen to this person and you have nostalgic feelings, and they've said all the right things, and they've engaged in advocacy and forms of activism in the past for in a particular brand, and now they've sort of sequestered themselves in that Black Lives Matter area. So you think you're doing the right thing, and you're going up against Nazis and white supremacists and bots and trolls, even though my picture was on my profile. I've
Mhm.
had videos up there. My rap name is pretty known. If you Google it, I have a heavily publicized loss and some victories. I used to battle rap. I'm right there. I've met the rapper
exactly.
before in
Let's just put it
person.
this way, like, you know,
But
I've
this
been
is this
following
is
Data
what they
for
do.
years now. We met on a forum back in the day. I believe it was Urban Chat back in the day. And we had, and I discussed this very openly with some people. We had a whole team of trolls, but not in the sense that, like, for example, we ganging up on people.
Right.
No, we were defending the victims of trolls.
Mhm.
This is why you see on our profile anti-troll.
Right.
And
Right.
where trolling has become, it's become like this thing where it's kind of like they want you now to kill yourself. Bully,
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
bully,
weaponized trolling
yeah.
because that came from the white supremacist message boards and troll
Yep.
message boards like 4chan 10 to 15 years ago. And it sucks
Mhm.
because I helped bring that style of humor over to black people before urban chat, and I'd say about 40 to 60 of us migrated to mainstream social media. There were no memes
Mhm.
on black social media. We did that. We brought
Exactly.
them over,
We
and a
we made
couple
that
other,
we made that
yeah,
popular.
we
We
made
made it
that popular, and a
Right.
couple other people kind of shifted closer to that blurred black nerd comic books anime
yeah.
overlapping culture, and I fuck with some of it. I like some of it. I've always been into Japanese animation since the early '90s, but now that it's become cool to be outright about it and have no edge to you and kind of center yourself on that. I think a few of them have got poisoned by a few of their whiter friends and used that type of humor against us. Like for instance, the didn't do nothing and we was kangs. We was kangs came from the white supremacists, but you also see young black women and gay black men using we was kangs, just like
Mhm.
people from 4chan/Paul, and the same means, or didn't do nothing. That's another term that they share, or the hard R N word. That's another term that they share. So you're
Mhm.
noticing these overlaps between these groups, like, whoa, gay homie, what they don't like you. They want to kill you. They use the word that you don't like way more than us. And we're really just talking about each other like, a bitch ass nigga. We don't want to rap about you, fam. You're not in our
Right.
raps. We don't nah, we're good on that. But them, they want to smoke you. Like that's what's
Mhm.
popping, like actively. And yet you're using their terminology, kind of hobnobbing with that, and
Thank you.
it's just odd. And what's that dude in LA, that famous Democratic benefactor that's been killing black gay prostitutes?
At
Man,
at Buck.
Ed Buck. Yeah, there's not a
Mhm.
lot of smoke for him, but
Nope.
there's smoke for these black men that are
Yeah,
allegedly killing people en masse. You
like
feel
that.
me?
Right.
The community is actually covering for Ed Burks.
Mhm.
Right.
Like, and the thing is, like, he's gonna come with the receipts, and that's something that they, like, the Me Too movement, they're not discussing that particular
Right.
aspect of this conversation. And for some reason, I said it before, they're focusing on black men, but
Right.
meanwhile, you're letting this slide.
Yeah,
All
because
the
we get hit with the docs, and to
Exactly.
turn it back around, we get hit with the docs. I've been a victim of it, and even black women, like women with
Mhm.
families. If most of our households are headed by women, why would you dock somebody that's so likely to have a child in their household? And that's exactly what they do, even leading to swattings. You know what? And people on the other side of the situation have done that too. I've gotten a doxing by the white side, made
Mm.
the mistake of sending an alleged bounty hunter to one of my old neighborhoods where there's not really a lot of ways in and out of there, and people are outside and he ain't look too familiar. They ain't come
right,
around there looking for me anymore. My aunt told me I wasn't in the country, but it made me laugh. Like, fam,
Wow.
word of advice, don't do nothing. Don't do that. Cause next time if somebody hears something like, who you looking for? It could be a young boy,
Mhm.
and they're a little different. It could be somebody young. I'm just trying to prevent danger from occurring. I wouldn't want anybody to get in trouble or get themselves hurt looking for the wrong person. And that's what those it may lead to consequences that are outside of our control because people do what they want to do on
Mhm.
multiple ends. And you might get somebody's address and think it's cool to come
right.
around there or be like, oh, wow, this person still lives there and I don't
Right.
live there. But we have a rapport with people that live around us. It could have been, people was looking out over there. We might have did some stuff on that block. You don't know where you're driving to when you do that or sending other people into. Like they do
Mhm.
things like swatting. So you're wasting, and I'm not a police person, but you're wasting police resources on your games trying to
Yeah,
get people hurt when you send a
Right.
SWAT to somebody's door. Now imagine if it's somebody for real crazy. And one of them cops ends up hurt themselves, and you made that happen.
Mhm.
Be liable for that situation. But they don't think any further than getting that approval from the person that they're doing this at the behest of, or the
fact.
next LOL, or the slam dunk, or I got that page out of here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. It's become monetized.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely doing that. Like when you said the Liberation Chief page's reply, what was it? Being blocked and slowed down.
We're being it's called reply deboosting. So basically, it's a form of censorship. So
Mhm.
okay, so let's say we reply to a certain tweet. People had now I have to kind of like scroll down to that particular tweet there, right? And so it makes it harder to find some of our content. And
Mm.
that's unfair for the fact, like, you have these blue checks running around who can say whatever the hell it is they want to say. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, we just got started and we're building a platform based off of facts and also data analysis and historical context, being who we are as a people, as a collective. And mind you, I did an audit. Over 99% of our followers are real.
Mhm.
Okay. I did an audit on a certain rapper and he's got like over fake ass followers.
Right.
Excuse me? Like it's so disrespectful for the fact that first of all, we grew this following organically, and then what we tweet out, it's going to be factual information. Sometimes it's going to be an opinion, but still at the same time, though, we would look at it. All we're saying is be fair. Just because you have a blue
Yeah.
check doesn't mean you get to say whatever else you want to say without
Well,
accountability.
Right.
I wanted to tell you that there are groups that have extra primacy on Twitter, namely this group called WAM, Women Action Media,
Mhm.
and it was founded by Jacqueline Friedman, a feminist writer and activist.
Yeah.
And they have extra primacy on Twitter. Like their reports mean a lot more than that is a white woman.
Yeah.
So okay, now they said Jamia Wilson is the founder.
Okay.
So I don't get it. How can it be Jacqueline Friedman and this black woman too, and she's not mentioned in the? See, this is what I mean. What's
It's a
going on
game.
here? So Jamia Wilson, and then look her up too, and you'll see.
Okay.
You'll see a little bit about her to her background. Wham was created because the gender problem. Jamia noticed that power and privilege rule mass media. So, wow, did we just find something wild? Because I didn't know about Jacqueline Friedman. I thought Jamia founded this. So who is it? Who is it?
Right.
Who's the face?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is very odd. That's very odd, and so when I found that out, I was actually very upset that, like, okay, so that means the next step is, depending on what gets reported, and the next step will be an outright, like, probably suspension or something like that, right? But my thing is this, like, if they were ever to look at all those different threads that, like, whatever conversations that LC hops in on, or the Chieftains podcast hops in on, or any other associated accounts, they'll see that these are actually just responses to inflammatory remarks. And now, so what I'm saying is, it's like the idea that someone can come in and you can say, you can create a hashtag targeting a specific group of people, right? Then your rebuttals are normally very nonsensical. You're not backed by any form of data.
None at all.
You don't back it up with references or anything like that. You just say, you normally resort back to, for example, just calling us Nazis. And
right.
But then when I try to have a sensical conversation with this individual, he loved to point back to Yvette, Tone, and basically it was along the lines of, his argument is basically just very one-sided in terms of just falling for the agenda of the Democratic Party. We're not saying that we're voting for Trump.
Exactly.
We're not saying like, you're focusing on Trump because of fear, right?
Of course, that's the dog whistle nowadays.
Any president ever. What we're saying is, you need to be on code. That's all we're saying. Be on freaking code at the end of the day. And then when receipts brought up the fact of who your parents are, then now you're saying that you feel attacked. Why do you feel attacked? Is it because that we actually pointed out a truthful statement, and we use different sources of information that's out there, that's public information, and then now Twitter is saying it's an issue? How is that an issue? We only responded. He attacked us first. When you bomb first and someone responds, that's not an attack. That's defense.
Right.
Exactly.
I think we're allowed to speak our opinion and our truth.
Factual.
Exactly.
Right? We're going to be responsible. We're all adults here. I will hope that we're all adults here. But
yeah,
it's very interesting that now you're focusing on an account that has less than 500 followers. Why? Why are you so focused on people who have such, like, we see that you have like maybe 1 million followers and most of them are fake. Sorry. But this is not just about that certain rapper. It's not just about him. It's other people too.
right.
That platform built around this thing.
Don't have 99 cents to stream a song.
Yeah.
It's not fair. Now, like, all the ADL's movement did was just, actually point out a certain flaw within the system itself.
Exactly.
So this goes beyond just Twitter. I asked a question. Is Twitter aligned with the establishment? And honestly, I believe the answer is this. Yes, you are.
Of course. At
of
when
course.
you have corporate sponsorship, you become a slave to their whims. You have to do what they say, or they'll withhold funding.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, they'll be cursing all over the radio, and it'd be revolution all day.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But it's not. They selling you clothes, and the same thing on Twitter. Like, to become an influencer, you have to have an aspect of that to you, to your personality, even when you engage in advocacy. Because I'm not going to call it activism anymore when rappers fly out to protest so their faces can be seen, especially around album release time.
Right. Hmm. Mm-mm-mm.
You know, it's easy to see, and don't get me wrong. There's hella genuine people that have good hearts that have made themselves and put themselves in position to do well. Even some of the people we may be speaking on directly or indirectly in this podcast. But
Mhm.
you still have to have some type of system of checks and balances. And just like King Carter said, we pointed out a flaw in the system, and it's not only the internet system, but even the old system of activism that was popping with
Yeah.
the generation beforehand. The way that they communicated and tried to reach people was incorrect. One organization had a Web 1.0 website and did not have social media until fairly recently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of Web 1.0, now we're in Web 2.0, and a lot of people don't understand like what that means. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was an upgrade in that particular technology. What it means is specifically that in terms of Web 1.0, there were actually very few content creators, right? Most people using the internet were consumers. Now at this particular stage, now we have like I think after around 1999. Now the system is actively engaging the user. So now you're encouraged to provide content, right?
Right.
And it's something very similar that I said to other groups of people. Like they complain so much about being targeted in terms of content, but the thing is, the web made it so like we can now go direct to consumer. We don't need Fortune 500 companies no more. It's easy to go direct to consumer now. That's why you see so many people with podcasts or who have platforms, even though they're probably not saying shit. So now, so it's easy to put out articles, to tweet out messages, make Facebook accounts, and have so many multiple pages and all that now. So you have all this information flooding you all at once. Some of it's actually now we can go into the nefarious content now. So it's easy for other people to point out, not just point out, but rather put out. Sorry about that. Put out information that has an agenda behind it now. So they're being paid behind the scenes to push a certain agenda. We point out Black Lives Matter.
Social engineering.
I'm so glad that Yvette, Tone, and others have pointed out Sean King's dealings.
Yeah.
You know what else? Even DeRay just bodied him the other day. DeRay made a whole article about it.
You know, you're putting all sides against the middle now. So that means what? Is it really Black Lives Matter, or does it mean that immigration lives matter? We want to know. We want to know.
It was Black Lives Money. Black Lives Matter for our pockets.
Yeah.
That's what it really was.
Good one. Because now at this point, you know, our brother, you know, before he passed, he tried to warn us. Down there in Ferguson.
Rest in peace to King D. Seals. G in peace to King D. Seals. Salute.
Exactly.
Seals. I was walking with him back in the day, and then it morphed into this shit. Now look, Sean King, you looking mad suspect. Talk him at
looking funny in the light.
Yeah, and he's blocking a lot of people for asking a lot of folks are asking questions, and he's blocking left and right.
He's feeling that heat. When it's time for accountability, nobody want to check in.
Nope.
Nobody want to check in. See, I can rock
with care responses,
but we also need to be using that towards these white nationalists and those who are aligned with. And guess what, Sean King? You're looking a lot like those who are aligning with the white nationalists. And those like you, D-Ray, you too.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what? At the end of the day, the people who are keeping it real in terms of ADOS movement and FBA and also B1 Brigade and all of us over at LC and also the Chief of this podcast, what we're saying is that, yo, like, you got to check in.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to check in. Who are you aligned with? We got to ask these questions. Who you getting? Who you?
We need to see your finances when it comes to whole transparency when it comes to money that has come from our community that was supposed to be earmarked for community improvement. We need to see that too. But instead of redacted versions or remixes or the bad boy version of it, oh well, we took this part out because we didn't want you to see that. But this looks good right here. Nah, don't do that. And all this rhetoric and browbeating and shaming isn't gonna change the mode of questioning. It's gonna make it intensify because you're fighting tooth and nail, but you're not fighting tooth and nail with facts.
At all.
You're trying to appeal to emotion like a child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can move into this whole direction involving even now who's that brother? Oh man, he loves supporting the rapper. He loves supporting Bernie Sanders.
Killer Mike.
Yeah, Killer Mike. See, it slipped my mind for that second. I knew who I was talking about, but Killer Mike. I can appreciate the fact that you shout out Yvette and Tone. You're willing to learn more. But let's talk about the political malfeasance and also irresponsibility by throwing your support so early behind a certain candidate. Okay, now you're throwing your support behind someone who believes in class-based policies that has nothing to do with influencing race and the racial wealth gap. See, now what we're saying is you got to check in. Right. I don't want any harm to come to the brother. What I'm saying is you're a little bit misguided. That's all I'm saying. You're misguided. Same as Sean King. Sean King, you supporting Bernie Sanders. What about the support for a black agenda?
Right, you don't hear that.
People want to ask questions like, what is a black agenda? Well, let's look up
what that is.
Right.
ADOS101.com that talks about a black agenda. But you don't get to that because it's too truthful for you, right?
We need to also I want the word agenda because we need to see what agenda means. What does agenda mean? What does agenda itself mean? Is it the meeting type? An agenda, a list of meeting activities in the order in which they are to be taken up, beginning with the call to order and ending with adjournment? Or is it the dictionary definition?
See, what we saying is, right, the underlying intentions or motives of a particular person or group. Okay. But what group?
Right.
What are your intentions now? Let's break this down. So what made you so comfortable to throw your support behind a certain individual? It doesn't have to be Bernie Sanders. You can even throw out Hillary Clinton because for a while, the black feminists was rooting hard for Hillary Clinton.
Sure was.
Right? She lost. She lost multiple times. Let's talk about that too. She lost. She lost hard. And then all of a sudden, Russian on the Russians. Oh, there were bots.
There was bots, yeah.
Now all of a sudden, at one point in time, ADOS was we were the bots. Oh, excuse me? We've always voted. The thing is, we saw through the BS.
Right.
We're the scapegoat.
But what people fail to realize, there is an electoral college. Trump lost the popular vote.
He won in the electoral college.
He won the electoral college.
That's rational. That's rational. That's not sensational. That's not sensational like saying niggas don't vote. When you mention
Right.
things like the electoral college, and then they say, well, it should be done away with. That's
Exactly.
not the answer to the question. We're not
Not-
talking
Exactly.
about whether it should be done away with. We're talking about how the process works.
Right.
So let's be real. Black people as a whole, we don't hold an electoral college. Still to this day, there is gerrymandering going on.
Right.
Straight up. Every time,
Gerrymandering
think about
and
this. Every time that
gentrification.
there's a certain section that gets too many black people in one area, what do? They change the lines.
The line. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if they change the lines and they can do that at will, what makes you think that somehow, some way, that ADOS or financial black Americans decided that we was going to vote for Trump? No,
Exactly.
we need an agenda. Now
Exactly.
that
Yep.
we're doing ourselves an issue.
Speaking
Now
speaking
you
of
go
which,
left and right.
Speaking of which, since people want to be so supportive of all of our black and brown coalitions, let's do a little bit of demographic numbering. Now, we
Mhm.
know about our neighbors to the south, Mexico. If you want to speak in United States parlance, uh, 30 to 70% of that population identifies as white, particularly in
Mhm.
America. Now, a matching percentage, 30% voted for Trump. They're not being
Mhm.
chastised by us en masse for voting against their interest, actually not voting against their interest because people don't understand within ethnic groups and communities and nationalities, there are different classes, social classes, and financial levels. So, of course, the people who have already established themselves in the country have turned a right wing lean, and they don't care about people from their country who are just getting here. That's competition for them, or that's cheap labor for them. They have assimilated, but
Mhm.
nobody from our community outside of very few analyzes that picture like that. They just see brown people and getting
Yep.
put out. And they're like, oh, a whole bunch of them voted for dude. And then it's not really a lot. Well, people are wayward, but that percentage doesn't match us. And it's not from an exit poll. It's literally, you can see the culture shift.
Hardcore
If you
data.
go to, yeah,
It's hardcore
Mhm.
data. And then now let's tie this into Gilliam. You go to Florida,
Mm.
you look at all those Hispanic Latino voters.
Yep.
And then now, mind you, I keep bringing up Claude Anderson for a reason. He prophesied this. He said right there in Florida, how they think.
Mhm.
I am white.
Yep.
So okay, let me make a point. When a nigga runs in their area, what happens?
they'll
They're
vote
white.
against.
They're gonna vote against them.
You don't vote against them. So it doesn't matter how much we vote, unless there's a transference of power, unless we have control,
Unless we have capital to influence
has
Right.
the
ability to control our destiny,
Mhm.
then there won't be equality in America. So it's not that we're playing the victim; we are the victim.
There's no playing. It's not a game.
Not.
Exactly.
Can't play the victim. I mean, we know of another group that actually plays the victim, that uses that as a game, but they're for another podcast and another discussion.
Mhm.
We don't play. This is not funny at all. We may laugh at our pain sometimes, but it's definitely not a game. We're in that position. But it's
Right.
not enviable.
Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I brought up Gilliam for a particular discussion and involving now all of a sudden, now CNN, I believe it's CNN, and they decided now to form an all black cast
Yes.
for a new show, and it's very laughable.
It
Shout out
is.
to for even pointing these out. The fact that we're not watching that shit,
No.
it's laughable. It's a joke, and it's a slap in the face to those of us who are not only just very educated, but even those who aren't necessarily politically educated, we can see through the farce.
Right.
It's definitely a ploy to not only line certain pockets, but also to try to garner up votes in the next in 2020. It takes to beat Trump. And guess what? Our situation has not changed under any president, and we don't give a damn. If we have another 4 years of Trump, guess what?
Right.
I'm not scared of Trump personally. I don't give a damn. Listen. I do whatever it needs to take, and it doesn't matter what administration is in charge. I do whatever it takes, right, to survive. I think we've done whatever we needed to do to survive.
Right.
Please, quote unquote, stay above water, and so. There are certain liberals that love to come up and talk about how Trump has, mobilized white nationalists. When have they never been mobilized?
Exactly.
When have they never been mobilized? Well, they love to say that, well, Obama was your reparations.
Reparation.
When?
No, he wasn't. What did I get out of him?
Black American. And this Negro inherited over $400,000 from his
grandma.
White grandmother.
His white grandma.
I don't know any Negro in any inner city that inherits $400,000.
Me neither.
I don't know any Negro in any inner city that attends private schools in Indonesia and
Me
moves to
neither.
Hawaii to be raised in a white household.
Harvard. I don't know. I don't know any. The only people that I knew that got accepted to any type of college in the inner city was normally because of what? A sports scholarship.
Sports scholarship, and then I knew a few people that got academic scholarships, and they fought hard for them. And that's another thing I want to bring up. See, when people say be like that group, I always say something. There's evidence of this in China. There are cheat squads. There's answer key selling and all kinds of other things that they do so they can beat the admissions tests and come over here.
Of course.
So how are we going to compete with that with hard work and ingenuity and honesty if there's organized systems with capital behind them producing people to do so? We're just going to hope our way into it or see that the system changes or snitch.
Or pray it away.
Or adapt to their behaviors too late and get caught as the odd man out and be holding the bag by being like them. Well, why don't you form your own squads? Or why don't you click up? They're just studying in groups. And then we found out that they're not just studying in groups. They're doing all kinds of things. Well, if you get low, you could do the same thing. No, we can't because we don't have lingual barriers. And if somebody gets caught, gets in trouble, it's not going back home.
Yeah,
it's getting in trouble.
Right.
It's like an actual situation. Like the white women are getting that light ass punishment. If one of us gets caught for that, it's not gonna be anything cute. So, someone listening is like, well, y'all sound hopeless and defeated. No, it's not hopeless and defeated, fam. It's just like we're saying, this is how it goes down. This is their gray money and their gray activity. When we try to do gray activity or even dark activity, they flash the light on us because we're a monitored group of people. People watch us just so they can steal what we do, so they can copy what we do. So why wouldn't they see, I wonder what hustles they got. He couldn't have got this way. He must be doing something illegal. So why would we try to do more illegal stuff in a new arena that we haven't been doing, that we haven't experienced yet? Because y'all doing it and getting away with it for a short time. Because if we have access to the information that says y'all are doing it, you probably ain't going to be able to do it no more.
Right.
No. Right. Exactly.
But here's a little quote from Martin Luther King out of his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. And he said a true revolution of values will soon look uneasily on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth. With righteous indignation, it will look at thousands of working people displaced, from their jobs with reduced incomes as a result of automation, while the profits of the employers remain intact, and say, this is not just. It will look across the oceans and see individual capitalists of the West investing huge sums of money in Asia, Africa, and South America, only to take profits
Right
out with
now.
return for the social betterment of the countries, and say, this is not just. It will look at our alliance with the landed gentry of Latin America and say, this is not just. The Western ignorant arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. A true revolution of values will lay hands on world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. So, and that's a small quote right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this current discussion here. Why can't we be like other groups? First of all, we're not immigrants. The other thing is this. Even y'all are being exploited.
Exactly.
Tiered system.
So,
all they did was globalize it.
Hustling, right? But you have an established network. The difference is you have somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Easily run. It's easy for you to come to our schools, pull out student loans, default on them, and go back to
Right.
That's easy.
Not only that, but you could get some. You can run back with some resources and some remittances.
Sure can.
We don't go nowhere. We can't. This is our home.
Yeah, it's our home.
And I know very much so that's my home, because I came up here by myself. I'm by myself. When I was in Toronto, despite all them Caribbean folks, and shout outs to them, shout outs to my Trini homies, my Jamaican homies, and all of them, y'all cool, but I'm by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm by myself. But when they come around us, they not by themselves.
No.
Exactly.
You know, it may be a few jokes and a few, hey man, ha ha ha. But I'm not you're not by yourself. Something
Mm-hmm.
already established so you could get here. And the truth be told, if we really wanna be technical, the Black Canadian Rosa Parks was Nova Scotian, aka an ADOS descendant, aka the first wave of escaped slaves that came here. So she was the reason why integration and certain things were possible here. That's still us.
Right.
It wasn't somebody that came over after the 60s. It was the Black people that were already here that we don't really speak on much, that don't have, a platform, that don't have a big parade celebrating their countries of origin. No?
Mm.
You live on the east coast of Canada in a smaller community, and you don't hear from them unless we're talking about the War of 1812 or the Civil War. You don't hear about them at all, and they come from us. Or maybe when somebody wants to talk about how the descendants of African Americans may have engaged in chattel slavery in Liberia, but we can expand on that too. No, those were slave owners' children. Those were mulattoes that came from there. And then people keep forgetting that the Maroons were intertwined with all of this. And they were also used as a bludgeoning device by white colonialists to keep Black revolutions from happening.
Exactly.
So,
and that explains why, like, Marcus Garvey came to the States.
Exactly.
They like out there in the Caribbeans and especially in Jamaica, they wasn't ready for a revolution like that. They was comfortable.
No.
You know, they, hey, you know what? We better than them Negroes over there. And so Marcus Garvey was like, yo, like, all right, like y'all think it's sweet. I'm gonna go over there where like they got some fight in them.
right.
So
You know what else?
and I'm gonna work with them. And guess what? He never disrespected us. I would say that in some areas maybe he was a little bit misguided because he didn't know any better.
Right.
And especially when you sitting in the room with the KKK and you having these meetings talking about, okay, you Negroes need to build over there in Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But these are things that aren't discussed. And don't get it twisted. I know my history involving Pan-Africanism, so I already know that he's not the father of Pan-Africanism, but he made it popularized.
Wasn't Delaney the father, or wasn't Delaney one of his teachers?
Delaney and Bishop Henry McNeil Turner from the AME Church. They were revolutionaries who also. And here's the thing. That's why, like, when people want to talk about Pan Africanism, but back then it was a different type of black.
Right.
Right. So it was kind of like, all right, we had some reciprocity. Some. I'm not going to say a whole lot. Well, some. They had a mutual understanding. And then now what we got is this. When you bring up Pan-Africanism, it's just a focus on Africa.
Mm-hmm.
When we say ADOS, Foundation on Blacks, B1 Brigade, there's a problem all of a sudden.
Right.
Right?
We're divisive.
But back then, it wasn't an issue. There's a reason why Marcus Garvey came here.
Right.
We've always been fighting people.
You know why I think it's an issue now? Because they realize that we're fighting people, and if we're not distracted by fighting on multiple fronts for multiple people, then we focus on ourselves. And when we focus on ourselves, that means we're taking ourselves off of their plates, and they can't use our mental or emotional labor for their own ends.
Yep.
That means they can't appropriate just off the basis of us sharing similar phenotypes and racial background. Like, there has to be some type of reciprocal respect. It's like I said before. Yeah, I'm having a little debate with a New York dude on my line about black fashion and hip hop fashion in the US.
Mm-hmm.
He's very NY centric. And I kind of noticed that. And I think that ties into the Caribbean thing. It's part of their legitimacy. They want to say they came up with everything because they don't want to realize Disco King Mario moved up from North Carolina. Hustlers were already flipping European clothing brands before y'all even decided to hip it to the don't stop. And it wasn't y'all that decided to do that in the first place. You feel me? It was us.
Exactly.
We do that all over to the point of where people just think it's a given. I'm in a small town that's not even by Toronto, where people hear me and they're like, "Oh, you from the States? Wow." And it's like, it ain't even that serious, Holmes. But then I see people that look like me, dress like me, and there's not an automatic nod. I'm not saying to kiss my ass, homie, but that's our custom. If you're gonna wear the uniform, act the part. And I don't mean act the part in a gangster way, because you got free medical care up here, cuz. Nah. A man can get welfare here and in the UK. So our stories aren't really the same, because you have so many social safety nets, and also the ability to go home if the times get tough.
Exactly. And even if they're first generation born here, they can go back to, their parents' land because they got dual citizenship. And I don't think a lot of people understand that neither.
Not at all. They don't know that. Like, I know homies that live in Parkdale with me. That's a hood in Toronto. Right across the street, that's my guy. But he got to go back to Trinidad multiple times. Whereas when I was in Ohio and Rochester, New York, most of my homies, and when I was in the DMV, most of my homies ain't been outside the country before.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't even, I know homies that never left their side of town.
Right.
Even when I used to be up in New York City, my manager was an immigrant dude. Like, his family was an immigrant. He's a second gen, but he didn't speak the language or anything. He said he knew people that didn't leave the Bronx. Everything they needed was right there. The place where they got food, their clothing store, the bar they wanted to kick it at, they girls, kids, everything. Life begins and ends there. And I'm not saying there's probably a lot of people in their domestic country like that. And I bet they'd be the coolest dudes in the world, like, welcome home. And that's the type that is, because they ain't never been to the United States before. So it's a totally different situation. You have enough resources to go home and kick it for a while and flex on your homies with all the money that you made at the crib. Because that's what my mans used to do. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But now I think it's kind of some fuck shit, for real, for real. It's like, you got a little Beamer up here and you wearing all your cool Atlanta music video clothes, you feel me, that you, because my mans really used to watch music videos, right? And and then like try and catch cues off them. And it's funny because I I left from out here and then came back up is when I was still in Toronto. I went back to Ohio and I got some clothes and he was watching the video and it's like, yo, they're wearing something you had on. I was like, yeah, and I had it before them.
Mhm.
I had it not trying to big up me, but I was like, I was wearing this before it was on the video. I was like, that's
Right.
what fly really means, bro. I was like, that's how you know that came from us. I was wearing
Yeah.
that already. And it was
Right.
something one of my homies gave me that piece of clothing. Like, here, you should rock this. Just something light. And then somebody in the video is wearing it, and then you see it in the video, and you're taking your fashion cues from there, and then going back to your home country wearing that. You feel
Mhm.
me? Them niggas can't afford that, bro, and you
No.
know it.
Exactly.
You feel me? You
Mhm.
slipping barrels of ramen noodles and candy and little things like that, but not really. You doing cool shit. That's what's up, fam, and it's contributing more than I am. I can't send nothing to nobody. U.S. dollar is stronger than the Canada dollar. What's
Right.
that going? You
Yeah.
feel me? Nothing. But your dollar, where you live in Canada, you sending money back down, but you also going back down to stunt. You feel me?
Right.
And then his people brought him up. He got trained. He got chain migrated in. Like
Hmm.
his dad came up. Then he came up, then his mom came up, and his parents ain't even together. You feel me?
Right.
One of them lived with somebody else, and it's crazy because I was chilling in a house, and Sunset had a little. His wife actually said something crazy about black women in the United States. Oh, you don't got to deal with all them hood rats, and I just looked at her like, what do you mean? You feel me? Like my mom's an officer in the army, and all the women in my family own property, so
Mhm.
they don't know what that is up here. And I always had
Right.
to remind them, you feel me? Like there's black excellence where I'm from, just like where you're from. In your country, the elite light skinned people, yeah, but not all of us are light skinned here. Not
Mhm.
not even most of us. Some of us just got it like that. My cousin is Senator Daryl Rousseau. That's my cousin. Some of us are different. My dad is Reds from DC. It's on both ends.
Yeah.
Some of us is a little different. We
Mhm.
have our own connections to stuff in the United States and the area, but it didn't just come from looking a certain way or being connected to white power.
Right.
But they don't really get that because they see what they see on TV. They either see the extreme poverty or they see entertainment money.
Mhm.
Like, nah, we even have an ill story here. Somebody I know in the States, he's from Chicago, but some of his people were originally from Chatham, Ontario, and that was some of the original folks that left the United States, already had some money, established
Mhm.
something up here, and then went back down. It's like, I ain't feeling it no more. Too cold. Going back to the crib. Because we could have
Right.
done that at that point in time. Do we do that now? No. But I know a lot of other people do, and then pretend to
Exactly.
not be able to be in that. Oh well, we're fucked up. If you so fucked up, then how you bouncing around like that?
Right. Or we only came to this country with $2.
Right.
$2 and the clothes on my back. Nah, that's not train fare. And you didn't know how to hop the train when you first got here. So
Mhm.
you just want to examine the stories, and then like you go to their Wikipedia and then found a job. So how did this person understand your language or hear past your accent and
Yeah.
know where did you stay? You stayed in the homeless shelter. You didn't get robbed. You had to tell someone you just got here.
Yep.
So what was it, fam? You went to stay with your peoples that was already popping, and then you branched off from there. It's okay.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. Because I know, like yesterday on Twitter, someone had said like, all when I was like, where's all the Black Americans at? They was like, oh, all y'all in the NBA and wanting to chase the billboards. I said, well, you could say the same thing about your people. Because look how the demographics in the NBA changing. and look
Exactly.
at Afrobeat and how that, is even coming fastly, on the billboard, and how Afrobeat is really crossing over in America.
Right.
So I said, everything you're saying to me, you could say that about your tribe of people, because y'all doing the same thing in like every sport, NBA and NFL.
But that shows the power of foundational Black Americans. So it's like everything that's cool, they want to emulate.
Mhm.
And we dictate exactly what is cool and acceptable to American society and now internationally. And they felt, well, it's not that they failed to realize it. The thing is, they play these little games of what they've been doing on Twitter, and it's kind of like now, like, well, you have access. No, we don't really have access. We don't control any of that shit. And
right.
So now you want to talk about competition. This goes back to what I said earlier. How can you compete without any of the resources? We own less than 1% of the farmland, and I can point out the data all damn day long. But the thing is that what you strive to be when you're an immigrant, you're striving to be exactly like who we are.
Right.
And that in itself says a lot about what we have contributed to society, the world society. And then they would talk about being world citizens. Well, like, no, like when you go to China, when you talk about hip hop, like they're talking about us.
Mhm.
We can even talk about like
Yeah.
martial arts. We can talk about the fact that with Bruce Lee, he was around like us.
That's how he learned his boxing style. His footwork came from African Americans.
And
he was a dance champion.
Mhm. So there's a lot that we've done without having anything at
Right.
all. And saying that means that is a form of revolution that they're not trying to. They're not trying to acknowledge that. It's a form of revolution. Everything we've done has always been a signal that we must fight back.
You know what else it is? I think it may be a little bit of little brother syndrome, because people are starting to get a little bit of visibility, and they've had some. It's like, wait, we want to be at the forefront of blackness. We never
Right.
asked to be at the forefront of anything. We never said we were. We just are highly visible. Now, people can say, well, that's because of American exceptionalism. No, our music and our culture was being exported before the 1940s, when America became a superpower. So that's nice try, my nigga, but nah. It's just because of the nature of our stylism. Women and men, we're just dope like that. And then you're admittedly moving the same way. And when you try and do it the same way, you're still using remnants of our culture. Like when you mentioned Afrobeat got trap drums now.
Yeah.
Afrobeat. If you look, here's a little trick. If you make beats and you see an Afrobeat beat that's at 100 BPM, take the drums out and put them in the same places that the West Coast beats at the same BPM, and it sounds the same. That do 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 do.
Yeah.
Those are house synthesizers from the early
Yep.
90s. And those bass lines are California ratchet bass lines. You just put some
Exactly.
dance hall drums on there and some African drums and called it something else, because you're singing
Right.
about your cultural mores, and you put a little bit of London swag, mate. Okay, cool. You put a little bit of that in there. My mom was born in England, you feel me? She's still ADOS. Her parents were in the military, had her. She grew up in the US. Her parents are from New Orleans. It is what it is, though.
Right.
It happens. But y'all
Yeah.
move around and you grab little bits and pieces and remix some of our stuff, put a name
Of
on
course.
it, and then keep it, and
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
re-export it. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, but that still has A, B, C, D, E, F, G
Yep.
components. So when you lay claim to our cultural exports, just remember that your exports have some of our pieces in there. And it's not because
Exactly.
of a global influence thing, it's because you literally got it from there. You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
that's
And
all
then,
right
like you
to
said,
admit.
yeah, and like you said, like you can put those Afro beats, and you can hear HBCU marching band. What's the difference?
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
So interesting.
Just like for instance, I think that the military drum set, the rock and roll drum set, that should, if people want to say, that's an African American instrument. We took
Yeah,
military drums, the snare, the
yeah,
kick, and everything else, and then changed it from that what was that Yankee Doodle music that they had before,
Mhm.
and
that's
the
Right.
soul, because that's what music sounded before we touched it. It was completely different. And
Exactly.
yeah, they had their Irish jig in it, their
yeah,
but it wasn't.
Mhm.
It didn't have a certain bounce that we added to it, and that
right.
revolutionized how that drum kit was used. And that same kick, snare, 4/4 rhythmic pattern is used by all genres now, every last one. And it's kind of because of us. It's kind of because of us. I'm not trying to lay claim, but it's kind of because of us. It's kind of
It's
because of
so funny
us.
that you guys mentioned like Afrobeat. So here's the thing: like in 1969, Cudi and his band went on a trip to the U.S. and met Sandra Smith, the singer of
Ooh.
Black Panther.
Mm.
Now I'm about
Mm.
to piss off people, right? So Sandra Smith, now known as Sandra Isidore, introduced Cudi to many writings of activists such as like Martin Luther King Jr., Angela Davis, Jesse Jackson, and his biggest influence of all, Malcolm X.
Hmm.
So you have
Wow.
all that ish in Afro beats
Right.
based off of who? Foundational Black Americans.
Right.
Yeah.
And
They
Afro
ran with it.
form of protest music.
Oh.
Mhm.
That's where protest music came from.
Right.
Hmm.
Race music that used to be like now is labeled rock and roll.
Mhm.
Hmm. We dictate culture
We
worldwide.
do.
And so that shows how great we are as a people. And we're not saying that like, okay, that y'all don't have your thing. The thing is this. A lot of your things are influenced by our things. We dictate,
Mhm.
like, okay, we made it cool. We said, you know what, you one of us. That's what we said. And then now it's kind of like when you say that, you're being xenophobic.
Of course.
It's a very strange argument to make when they don't know their own history.
We ain't beating y'all
Yeah.
ass. We ain't burning you.
You don't know their own history. Like all that stuff that you got was because of what we did.
What'd you do to that tribe next door about 10 years ago? What's in the news? Oh, y'all beefing over Arabic religions over there in
Yeah.
your own homeland.
All
Ain't no
homeland.
ain't no Arabs over there, cuz. It's just y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all going to war. We don't do none of that. See, I'll say the closest was when the Somali folks moved in the Agler Green in Columbus, and there were some fades, but now everyone's cool. Those were fights. No one was being blown up with rocket propelled grenades, burned, or raped. That
Mm.
takes place over there
Mhm.
because of ethnic divisions, and not even just ethnic divisions. It's actually way more complex than that. Like some people have different lifestyle. You might be a herder, and somebody else might be non-nomadic. They might be a farmer, and those two jobs conflict. They can work in synergy, but herders need land, and so do agricultural people. The herders, their cows eat the grass. Now everyone's need the land to grow their crops. They conflict, and then they get to banging. We didn't do that with y'all
Yeah.
at all. Shoot, I
That.
wish I
Exactly.
wish they would have came around when we still had land and farms. Maybe it would have been easier to work some of this shit out. Maybe if they would have came before the Great Migration somehow, but see they couldn't because we made that possible later on. White people
Mhm.
didn't let them in to help.
Right.
But even with that, like they even question if you do have land. Like my family, we have land, and I remember I had posted about it, and I remember I think the chick's librarian, and she's like, "How did your family get that land? Like I'm not supposed to have this land." Like it was some drama that's behind this limb. But you know, like sometimes they try to figure out how do we acquire certain things or even inherit certain things because they feel like we all should be crackheads and living in the projects, living in the
Facts.
streets somewhere.
That's facts. Because I think us being in a bad position gives other groups legitimacy. It gives them,
Yeah.
okay, well, I could just jump up. Fuck them. But
Mhm.
when you reveal other parts of the story, it makes it a little more difficult to move like that with full morality.
Yep.
Or it changes their perception. Like, oh, so they got a little bit of power. Damn, so everybody's not poor. Wow. I'm gonna have to move
Right.
right. See? And I
Mm-mm.
think we should show a lot more examples of that, like not show our hand, but look, things are gonna be moving a little differently from nowadays. We got open hands, but the handshake is firm, and we're gonna be looking you on your eyes, and it's a business-based situation. My brother, my sister, but it's gonna be my dollar. So I get
Yeah.
by, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And and I think, right now this is a perfect place to close with this relaunch that we've been doing with the Chieftains. And I said it before, like on in one of my statuses. I think that like if people were really listening to this and actually listen and with open ears, some folks might be ticked off, but that's fine. But also, it's definitely been very informative. We touched on a lot within this particular episode here, and we got more to come later on. But yeah, definitely, I will hope that people will continue to listen to what we've got to put out. Especially now we have the new black media, and the Chieftains is definitely part of new black media. I'm definitely putting that out in the atmosphere. I believe that now we can definitely be open and honest in terms of the discussions that we're going to be having here. Andrea, Meta, thank you for definitely being on tonight. I know you all definitely have things to do. I got things to do. So yeah, shout outs to y'all, TBA, Tariq, Yvette, Tone, and everybody that's part of the New Back Media. Thank you. And for those who will be listening, thank you for your time.
Peace.
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 Don't get too mad, y'all. I won't care.